Chapter 360. When Yi Chen heard this, he smiled and got up. Let's go and welcome Yin Zheng and the others. Yes, Lord. When Gui Yi, Guan Er, and Zhang San heard this, they all bowed and followed Yi Chen to the entrance of Zhuo County City. At this moment, Yi Chen had completed the Oath of the Peach Garden plot quest, but the players rarely left Zhuo County. This was because they were all thinking about one thing, which was to follow Yi Chen and reap the benefits. At this moment, the Golden Scarf army had not been heavily damaged and still had their strength. As for the Devil Race, they were all overpowered and stronger than the Golden Scarf army and had more numbers. Even if they worked together, it was hard to guarantee that there would be no casualties. Once they died, they would lose 10 levels. If they obtained some cultivation techniques or equipment, it would not be too bad. If they did not obtain any, it would be a huge loss. However, following Yi Chen to participate in the Golden Scarf Rebellion and the Devil Race's invasion was much safer. This was because Yi Chen was very strong and fierce, and so was his faction. No one in the human race could compare to Yi Chen, not even the Devil Race. Moreover, this was proven by the facts. In just one day, the Golden Scarf Army and the Devil Race in Yuzhou were uprooted by Yi Chen. The other regions of the Great Han Empire were still fighting, and most of them were suppressed by the Devil Race to the point that they could not even raise their heads. The result of this was that the human players kept dying. Moreover, they died under the condition that they didn't get any cultivation techniques or equipment. Therefore, after the Oath of the Peach Garden plot quest ended, the players who came to Yuzhou all chose to stay in Zhuo County and follow Yi Chen. On the streets of Zhuo County, the players uneasily stood on the streets and discussed. The discussion was all about Yi Chen. More accurately, it was about whether Yi Chen would let them follow him and reap benefits. Yi Chen led Yi, Guan Er, and Zhang San out of the city lord's mansion. As soon as they reached the main street, the players stopped their discussions and automatically made way for them. Yi Chen frowned slightly as he looked at the densely packed players before returning to normal. Yi Chen had expected that the players would choose to stay in Zhuo County after completing the quest. However, Yi Chen didn't expect there to be so many of them. At this moment, a player mustered up his courage and bowed to Yi Chen before asking, "Brother Yi, I'm sorry. Lord Prefecture Overseer, we would like to follow Lord Prefecture Overseer to kill demons and golden scarves. Is that possible?" Yi Chen couldn't help but be stunned when he heard this. He didn't expect that someone would ask him such a question. Moreover, the person's attitude was surprisingly respectful. In the next second, Yi Chen realized why this player was imitating the ancients. Previously, at the entrance of Zhuo County City, some people used the habits of the real world to address Yi Chen. Some even spoke rudely and were captured or killed by the soldiers of Zhuo County. At this thought, Yi Chen glanced at the player. Before he could speak, the player added, "Lord Prefecture Overseer, we can guarantee that we won't snatch any equipment or techniques that you drop, no matter what level they are. We won't snatch them, and we won't snatch the fiends or golden turbans that you want to kill. We only ask that we follow you and kill the remaining fiends and golden turbans." Yi Chen fell silent for a moment. Then, he looked at the players who were waiting for an answer and said, "Okay. However, remember one thing. Don't go back on your words. I'm not a philanthropist. If you can't do what you said, don't blame me for being heartless." The Demon Clan army and the Golden Turban army were large in number. When Yi Chen's Samsara City army attacked, both the Demon Clan army and the Golden Turban army would be scattered into countless groups. After the Samsara City army charged forward a few more times, some demons and golden scarves would inevitably escape. Not only were there few of them, but they were also scattered. If there were no players, Yi Chen would send troops to chase after the escaping demons and golden scarves. Otherwise, the remaining demons and golden scarves would gather and continue to wreak havoc. The golden scarves were not a problem, but the demons were not. Once the remnants of the demon race were allowed to escape, they would definitely attack the civilians of the Great Han Dynasty and devour them. Human players would gain a lot of experience, equipment, and skills by killing demons. On the other hand, demons could rapidly increase their cultivation by eating humans. If these remnants of the demon tribe were allowed to grow, they would definitely create some powerful demon tribe, and even become the first demon tribe to ascend to the untainted land. This was not what Yichun wanted to see. With these players following him, Yichun did not have to worry about the leftovers. The players would not let any demons go. Therefore, Yichun could save time and continue to farm demons and golden scars in other places. In this way, Yichun would not lose anything. Instead, he could farm more demons and golden scars. As soon as Yichun finished speaking, the players became excited. "Thank you, Boss Yichun. We promise that no one will do those immoral things. If anyone dares to do it, we will kill them together." Yes, we will definitely kill those who dare to steal from Boss Yichun. "Thank you, Boss Yichun. I knew it. Boss Yichun would not be so cold-blooded. If not for those idiots who wanted to steal from Boss Yichun, Boss Yichun would not have killed them." That's right. I used to think that Boss Yichun was not easy to talk to. Now, it seems that it was not the case. From now on, I'm Yichun's hardcore fan. In Zhua County, the players around Yichun were discussing passionately. Then, they spread the news. Before long, all the players in Zhua County knew about this. Excited shouts rang out one after another. No one thought that Yichun was lying. This was because Yichun was the strongest human. No matter if it was strength or influence, he was unparalleled. There was no need for him to lie to them. Of course, they were even happier that they could follow Yichun and reap the benefits. To them, this was what they wanted. Safety, and they could continue to become stronger. They could continue to obtain cultivation techniques and equipment. There were a lot of people here, but there were too many demons and golden scars. Yichun looked at the excited players and smiled. Then, he walked towards the city gate. Along the way, the players kept expressing their goodwill to Yichun. They gave him all sorts of blessings and flattery. Yichun did not respond to them one by one. He only smiled and walked past them. To Yichun, the smile was just out of politeness. Yichun was overbearing, ruthless, and merciless. However, that was only for those who were hostile to Yichun and those who dared to steal from Yichun. Naturally, Yichun would not casually put on airs when dealing with others. He would not act pretentious to the heavens. Of course, politeness was just politeness. If anyone dared to steal from Yichun, Yichun would not hesitate to kill them. Even if he had to kill them in real life, Yichun would not hesitate at all. To Yichun, an enemy was an enemy. There was no need to talk about feelings. Chapter 361. At the gate of Zhuojuan City. As soon as Yichun arrived, he saw Zhao Yun, Dian Xiong, Gao Shun, Zhao Meng, and the 400,000 soldiers of Samsara City waiting quietly outside the city gate. Yichun could not help but raise his eyebrows when he saw the soldiers of Samsara City exuding a different aura. They had all reached the innate realm. Not bad at the thought of this, Yichun could not help but smile. At this moment, Zhao Yun, Zhao Meng, Dian Xiong, and Gao Shun all knelt down on one knee. Then they clasped their fists and bowed loudly. "Greetings, my lord." Swoosh! The 400,000 soldiers of Samsara City followed closely behind and knelt down on one knee in unison. Then they shouted in unison. "Greetings, my lord." The 400,000 soldiers of Samsara City shouted in unison. Their voices shook the sky. Majesty, sternness, and iron-bloodedness were the aura of the 400,000 soldiers of Samsara City at this moment. And this aura was also filled with strong respect and worship. They respected and worshipped their lord, Yichun, their lord, and Yichun. Yichun had given them everything they had now. Without Yichun, they did not know where they would be starving or even dying. But now, they had become the soldiers of Samsara City, Yichun's soldiers. They had a home, farmland, no need to starve, no need to worry about being bullied. They even had equipment and strength that they had never dared to dream of. At this moment, the soldiers of Samsara City had all reached the innate realm. For the soldiers of Samsara City, this was like a dream. But in fact, they had all reached the innate realm. And all of this was given to them by their lord, Yichun. Therefore, they were grateful and moved. Then, they respected and worshipped Yichun. They worshipped Yichun. For all the soldiers of Samsara City, Yi Chun was their faith. No matter what Yi Chun wanted to do, they would do it with their lives. For their lord, Yi Chun, they would kill all the enemies. Yi Chun smiled and nodded as he looked at the high morale of the Samsara City army. Then he looked at Zhao Yun, Dian Xiong, Gao Shun, and Zhao Meng. Looking at their blood-stained battle robes, Yi Chun let out a long sigh. He quickly walked over to Zhao Yun, Zhao Meng, Dian Xiong, and Gao Shun and helped them up one by one. Then, he said heavily, "Thank you for your hard work." As soon as Yi Chun finished speaking, Zhao Yun, Dian Xiong, Gao Shun, and Zhao Meng all felt their hearts warm. They then bowed and said, "For the Lord, even if we die, we will have no regrets. Enter the city." When Yi Chun heard this, he nodded heavily and shouted, "Yes, my lord." Zhao Yun, Zhao Meng, Dian Xiong, and Gao Shun bowed in unison. Then they led the 400,000 soldiers and followed Yi Chun into Zhuo Commandery. When Yi Chun's Samsara City army entered Zhuo Commandery, the players who were still cheering hurriedly made way for the Samsara City army to pass through. As the Samsara City army entered the city, the players in Zhuo Commandery were all stunned. This was because they felt pressure from the Samsara City army. This pressure came from their aura and strength. Every soldier of Samsara City gave the players this feeling. This made many players think of the pressure they felt when they attacked a large-scale stronghold and besieged the chieftain of a large-scale stronghold. That pressure came from the fact that the chieftain of the large-scale stronghold was of the innate realm. He was powerful and could kill people like flies. But here, every soldier of Samsara City gave the players this feeling. The result was obvious. The soldiers of Samsara City were all of the innate realm. When they thought of this fact, the players in Zhuo Commandery looked at each other with envy. Of course, other than envy, there was also a strong sense of fear and nervousness. Yi Chun's soldiers were of the innate realm, but they hadn't even reached the innate realm. How could they not be afraid and nervous? Time passed slowly. When the Samsara City army entered the drill ground, the players in Zhuo Commandery heaved a sigh of relief. Then, there was an uproar. That scared me to death. How many people are there? At least 300,000 to 400,000. So many of them are of the innate realm. I finally know why Yi Chun. Boss Yi Chun didn't take in any underlings. With such soldiers, there's no need to take in any underlings. That's right. With these soldiers, there's nothing they can't do. No one could stop Yi Yuzhou. That's not the point. The point is that Yi Yuzhou not only has a lot of soldiers, but he also has a lot of historical generals. There are a bunch of them. Any one of them can hold back 10,000 men. I think that even if someone was lucky enough to take in a historical general, they would still cry in front of Boss Yi Chun's soldiers. 400,000. If I'm not wrong, those are 400,000 innate realm soldiers. Any historical general would have to kneel in front of these soldiers. Did you forget that Boss Yi Chun has a personal army of 10,000 people? That's the most amazing thing. It's a pity that Boss Yi Chun doesn't take in any underlings. Sigh. The players talked about their shock. At this moment, Yi Chun brought Zhao Yun and the others back to the Castellan's residence. Castellan's residence, main hall. When Zhang San arrived, he hurriedly greeted Zhao Yun, Dian Xiong, Zhao Meng, and Gao Shun. Originally, Zhang San wasn't willing to submit to anyone. However, after being taught a lesson by Yi Chun, he changed his attitude. Looking at his amiable subordinates, Yi Chun nodded in satisfaction. Then, he looked at Zhao Yun and asked, "How's the situation in Yunzhong, Yuyang, Shanggu, and Daijun?" Hearing Yi Chun's question, Zhao Yun hurriedly stood up and bowed. "My lord, the triple ground golden turban was divided into dozens of groups, with a population of 100,000 to 200,000. They have been wiped out, and the demon clan has not been seen. Therefore, the people of the triple ground golden turban did not suffer many casualties except for the serious loss of property, food, and houses. It's a good thing that the people can keep their lives." When Yi Chun heard this, he chuckled and nodded. Then he asked, "How are the casualties of the soldiers?" "My lord, no one from the White Horse Righteous Army died or was injured." Zhao Yun hurriedly bowed and replied. Yi Chun nodded in satisfaction. Then, He looked at Dian Xiong, Gao Shun, and Zhao Meng. When Dian Xiong, Gao Shun, and Zhao Meng saw this, they hurriedly stood up and bowed before Yi Chen could ask. Reporting to my lord, none of my soldiers were injured, and none of them died in battle. When Guan Er and Zhang San heard this, they couldn't help but feel deep veneration. When marching to war, it wasn't just the strength of the soldiers and the quality of their equipment that ensured no casualties. To achieve this, it also required a talented general. It was obvious that Zhao Yun, Dian Xiong, Zhao Meng, and Gao Shun were all extremely capable generals. Good. When Yi Chen heard this, he laughed and then looked at Zhao Meng and shouted, Don't worry. Zhao Meng, listen to my orders. When Zhao Meng heard this, he hurriedly bowed and said, This general is here. Tomorrow, lead the soldiers to Samsara City and transport 1 million war horses to Zhua Commandery. Prepare enough provisions for 1 month. Bring as many armors and weapons as you can. Bring 1 billion arrows. Yi Chen wanted to mobilize 1 million war horses, armors, and weapons because he had obtained 10 heaven-level recruitment orders from the Oath of the Three in the Peach Garden. 1 heaven-level recruitment order could directly get 100,000 soldiers. Yi Chen wouldn't keep it. After all, Yi Chen wanted to conquer the world. How could he not take advantage of the Golden Scarf Rebellion and the Demon Race's invasion to train his soldiers? Not only did Yi Chen want to train his soldiers, but he also wanted to train them. Chapter 362. Zhao Meng was stunned when he heard this. He didn't expect that his lord, Yi Chen, would mobilize millions of war horses to Zhua Commandery. He also had to prepare provisions, weapons, armor, and arrows. All of this meant that Samsara City was going to send in more soldiers, and it was going to be millions of soldiers. Zhao Meng came back to his senses and bowed deeply. My lord, I'll set off right away. Zhao Meng said this because he wanted to buy time for Yi Chen. Yi Chen wanted to earn a lot of military merits and merits. The sooner he could get what Yi Chen wanted, the sooner the army of Samsara City could leave Yuzhou and go to other places to quell the rebellion and kill the monster clan. Yi Chen couldn't help but smile when he heard this. Then he said, We can set off tomorrow. The soldiers have been fighting for a day. They can't be overworked. How could Yi Chen not tell what Zhao Meng was thinking? However, for Yi Chen, he still wanted to earn merits and battle merits. Furthermore, he wanted to earn them as much as he could. However, he wasn't in a hurry to do so tonight. The reason was very simple. Yi Chen wanted to send in millions of soldiers. It seemed like a large number, but they were all new soldiers. The new soldiers hadn't received any training. If they went to the battlefield directly, there was a high chance that they would die. It was also because of this reason that Yi Chen was prepared to use a day's time to simply train the million new recruits. If other players did this, they wouldn't be able to do it. Training new soldiers wasn't something that could be done in a day. However, this wasn't a problem for Yi Chen. Yi Chen now had 410,000 veterans who were all in the innate realm. His subordinates were Zhao Yun, Dian Xiong, Guan Er, and Zhang San. These four were all top historical generals. It was too easy for the new soldiers to learn how to kill the enemy. Yi Chen wanted to conquer the world, but he wouldn't risk the lives of his soldiers. This was because they were all living people with flesh, blood, and souls. They were not just a bunch of data. Therefore, Yi Chen asked Zhao Meng to go back to Samsara City to get weapons and armor to equip the millions of new soldiers. He also wanted to dedicate a day to training the new soldiers. Of course, Yi Chen dared to do so because Yi Chen had obtained the title of sovereign in the historical mission of the Oath of the Three in the Peach Garden. One of the special effects of the Emperor title was that it could increase the morale of the troops by 100 points. This was already the maximum level of morale. With this kind of morale and the leadership of Yi Chen and his subordinates, there was no difference between the new recruits and the battlefield veterans other than strength and experience. Any new recruit would be someone who dared to fight, kill, and risk their lives. Even if they encountered the demon clan, they would not be afraid, let alone retreat. Zhao Meng was a little surprised when he heard this. He didn't expect Yi Chen to rest for a day in Zhua County. Zhao Meng quickly bowed and said, Yes, my lord. Yichen nodded with a smile. Then he looked at Gu Yi and said, Feng Xiao, send someone to Yuyang tomorrow and inform Zhang Liao. Tell him to go to Yuyang, Shanggu, and Dai County after dealing with the food issue in Yuyang and continue to act according to the previous order. All the tycoons who don't obey the order will be killed without mercy. Yuzhou was Yichen's territory. At this moment, except for Yuyang, Shanggu, Dai County, and Zhua County, all the other counties were acting according to Yichen's order. All the cities would buy the food from the tycoons at twice the usual price, and then provide relief to the people in Yuzhou. All the tycoons who didn't obey the order would be killed. Those who dared to resist would also be killed. For Yichen, those who dared to resist were those who disobeyed the order because of their status as aristocratic families. They were useless to him. Yes, my lord. Guo Yi hurriedly bowed and answered. At this moment, a soldier of the Samsara Legion walked in. As soon as he entered, he got down on one knee and loudly bowed. Reporting to my lord, the horse merchant Su Shuang has already delivered the wrought iron and cosmic Xian iron to the city lord's mansion. Hearing this, Yichen nodded. Then he looked at the excited Guan heir and Zhang San and said with a smile, Oh, Yezi's descendant is in the smithy of Zhua County. Take the cosmic Xian iron to him and have him forge a weapon for you. Guan heir and Zhang San were overjoyed and hastily bowed. Many thanks for my lord's gift. Their words were brimming with excitement and gratitude. A weapon forged from cosmic Xian iron was 100% a heaven-grade weapon, and a heaven-grade weapon forged by Yezi's descendant was certain to be one of the best heaven-grade weapons. With such a weapon, whether it was Guan heir or Zhang San, they would be like tigers that had grown wings in battle. How could Guan heir and Zhang San, who didn't even have a yellow-grade weapon, not be excited and grateful? Yichen nodded with a smile and said, Go ahead. Yes, my lord. When Guan heir and Zhang San heard this, they both bowed and left the hall. Yichen looked at the maid at the door and ordered, Prepare some food and wine. Yes, Lord Prefecture Overseer. When a maidservant heard this, she hurriedly bowed and ran towards the kitchen. He suddenly thought of something. He looked at Yi Chun and bowed. My lord, may I know where my lord is preparing to send troops after a day? When Yi Chun heard this, he couldn't help but ask, Feng Xiao, why do you ask? He was silent for a moment. Then he bowed and said solemnly, My lord, at this moment, not only is there a golden scarf rebellion in the Great Han, there is also a demi-human invasion. Previously, Zhang Jiao schemed against the Luoyang, but his scheme was exposed, and all his efforts were for naught. Thus, there aren't many golden scarf around Luoyang. Even if there were, they would have been wiped out by the Great Han army. Thus, there is no danger of golden scarf around Luoyang. However, this demi-human invasion is caused by the loss of the Great Han's karmic luck, so the demi-human race will definitely target Luoyang. If the demi-human race kills His Majesty, the human race's karmic luck will be seized by the demi-human race. At that time, even if my lord unifies the human race, he will not be able to recover the lost karmic luck. This is not a good thing for my lord. When Yichen heard this, he was taken aback. He hadn't expected Guo Yi to be worried about this. Yi Chun wanted to conquer the world, and this was a good opportunity. He could ignore the demi-human race and allow them to kill Lu Hong. If Yi Chun didn't act, Lu Hong really might be killed by the demi-human race. This would give Yi Chun a chance. Of course, this was only a possibility. In his previous life, the demi-human race had breached Luoyang City and attracted the Nanhua Elder Immortal, Yu Ji, and Zhua Ci. However, even the three of them had almost failed to protect Lu Hong. Yi Chun had been reborn, so how could he not remember these things? At this moment, although the Great Han's karmic luck had been lost, the human race's karmic luck had not been lost. Lu Hong still represented the human race's karmic luck. If Lu Hong was killed by the demi-human race, it would be useless even if they unified the world. This was because at least half of the human race's karmic luck would be taken away by the demi-human race. To Yi Chun, if half of the human race's karmic luck was taken away by the demi-human race, how could the demi-human race ascend to the untainted land? Therefore, Lu Hong could die, but only by himself or by the human race. No matter what, he couldn't be killed by the demi-human race. Yi Chen knew the result of his previous life, but Yi Chen wouldn't gamble at all. Yi Chen wanted to be foolproof. Chapter 363. Thinking of this, Yi Chen glanced at Guo Yi, shook his head helplessly, and said, "Feng Xiao, don't worry that I'll punish you in the future. If you have anything to say in the future, just say it. I'm not a muddle-headed person who won't listen to advice." Guo Yi heaved a sigh of relief and bowed with a smile. "Yes, Your Majesty. Yes, Your Majesty." Guo Yi was really worried that Yi Chen would punish him. After all, this was a rare opportunity. If he waited for Lu Hong to die or be killed by someone else, he didn't know how long he would have to wait. But this would indeed affect Yi Chen, so Guo Yi still said it. If he didn't say it, Yi Chen would be stubborn and it would be bad. But obviously, Yi Chen wouldn't blame Guo Yi for this. Yi Chen couldn't help but glare at Guo Yi and say, "Feng Xiao is telling the truth. What Feng Xiao said is the truth, and it is absolutely true. However, I never said that Luoyang would be left alone. This world belongs to the human race, and the human race's karmic luck cannot be lost, not even a single bit. So, we'll march directly to Luoyang one day later and kill all the demons along the way." When Zhao Yunzheng, Dian Xiong, Gao Shun, and Zhao Meng heard this, they all stood up and knelt on one knee. "We're willing to kill all the demons in the world for Your Majesty." When Yi Chen saw this, he burst out laughing and shouted, "Great!" Yi Chen stood up and walked over to Zhao Yun, Dian Xiong, Gao Shun, and Zhao Meng and helped them up one by one. Yi Chen looked at the four of them and said solemnly, "You're all the pillars of Luoyang. You are all the mainstays of Samsara City. It is my honor to have you follow me. In the future, when we find the 3 Immortal Island, I'll use the treasures on the island to strengthen your bones. When the time comes, I'll get you Xiantian cultivation methods and pave the way for you to become experts." Zhao Yun, Dian Xiong, and Gao Shun, as well as Zhao Meng, were first-rate historical generals. Their martial strength wasn't low. However, their martial power was limited to the mortal world. In the future, when they ascended to the primordial world with their current potential, they would soon be eliminated. What Yi Chen wanted to do was very simple. He wanted to turn all his loyal subordinates into geniuses. Because they were loyal, because they were willing to do anything for Yi Chen. Yi Chen naturally wouldn't be stingy with such a subordinate. Zhao Yun, Dian Xiong, Gao Shun, and Zhao Meng were stunned hearing this. They had thought about ascending to the untainted land because their lord, Yi Chen, had built his territory with a god-level village creation token. Such a territory could automatically gather the light from Providence. As long as he could unify the world, he would definitely be able to ascend to the primordial world. Because of this, they had thought about what would happen after they ascended to the untainted land. However, without exception, they were all at a loss. That was because their strength was among the strong in the mortal world. But in the great desolate world, they were 100% ants. In the great desolate world, there were experts everywhere. The weakest one could crush them effortlessly. They had thought about how to become stronger, and they also knew the roots of becoming stronger cultivation methods and bones. However, their cultivation methods restricted them. They didn't know where to get the Xiantian cultivation methods. As for their bones, they were also restricted. They didn't know where to get the heavenly treasures that could improve their bones. But now, Yi Chen's words undoubtedly told them one thing. Yi Chen had considered all of this for them, and he had already made a plan. After coming to their senses, Zhao Yun, Dian Xiong, Zhao Meng, and Gao Shun all knelt on one knee and bowed loudly. "We swear to follow our Lord to death. If we violate this oath, may the heavens and earth destroy us." Looking at the excited and grateful faces of Zhao Yun, Dian Xiong, Gao Shun, and Zhao Meng, Yi Chen nodded and said, "I believe in you." Then, he helped the four of them up. When Zhao Yun, Dian Xiong, Gao Shun, and Zhao Meng heard this, they all smiled at the same time. Then they bowed again to Yi Chen and said, "Thank you, my lord." Yi Chen spoke truthfully, so how could Zhao Yun, Dian Xiong, Gao Shun, and Zhao Meng not understand? To them, being valued and trusted by Yi Chen was more important than anything else. Yi Chen chuckled and nodded. At this moment, a soldier of the Samsara Legion came to the living room. The moment he entered, he knelt on one knee and bowed loudly. "My lord, Sun Qing, Chun Kun, and Zhang He of Hejian request an audience." When Yi Chen heard this, he couldn't help but be taken aback. He didn't expect that it would be these three who came to pay him a visit. Sun Qing naturally didn't need to be mentioned. He was known as a talented advisor to the emperor, a top talent in internal affairs. Chun Kun was a first-class historical civil official, and Zhang, he was a first-class historical military general. After coming back to his senses, Yi Chen's eyes lit up. Could it be that they came to pledge their allegiance to him? At this moment, the Golden Turban Rebellion and the Demon Clan were invading. The Great Han Dynasty was not peaceful, but these three came to pay Yi Chen a visit. No wonder Yi Chen thought so. At this moment, a trace of worry flashed across Gui Yi's face. He then bowed to Yi Chen and said, "My lord, Sun Qing, Sun Wenruo, and Chun Kun, Chen Zhongwen are my good friends." When Yi Chen heard this, he was slightly taken aback. Then, he couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. These two had received Gui Yi's invitation, but didn't go to Samsara City. They chose to wait and see, but now the world was in chaos, and they chose to pay him a visit at this time. This is an apology, and they're sincerely choosing to follow me. What's the matter with Zhang He? Was he tricked by Sun Qing and Chun Kun? Thinking of this, Yi Chen couldn't help but smile. Then he said, "Let's go and welcome these three people." "Yes, my lord." When Gui Yi heard this, he immediately heaved a sigh of relief. Then he bowed in response. Since Yi Chen said this, it was obvious that he had let go of the matter of Sun Qing and Chun Kun not accepting his invitation. This was naturally good news for Gui Yi. After all, those two people were his good friends. Now that they had risked their lives to come to Zhuo Commandery, their intentions were clear. They were here to follow Yi Chen. At the same time, they were here to apologize for not accepting his invitation. Yi Chen naturally saw how Gui Yi heaved a sigh of relief. He also knew what Gui Yi was thinking, but Yi Chen didn't care. Gui Yi's worries were not misplaced. Sun Qing and Chun Kun were his good friends. This was human nature. To Yi Chen, regardless of whether it was Sun Qing or Chun Kun, the fact that they had come to Zhuo Commandery alone in this extremely dangerous situation was enough to prove their sincerity. There was no need to fuss about what had happened before. Of course, Yi Chen didn't fuss about it, because Sun Qing and Chun Kun hadn't exceeded the maximum deadline that Yi Chen had given them. Otherwise, Yi Chen definitely wouldn't have accepted these two people. Even Sun Qing, who was known as the talented assistant of the king, wouldn't have been accepted by Yi Chen. Chapter 364. Let's go. With that, Yi Chen walked toward the gate of the Castellan's mansion. Gui Yi followed closely behind, followed by Zhao Yun, Dian Xiong, Gao Shun, and Zhao Meng. At the gate of the Castellan's mansion, Sun Qing, Chun Kun, and Zhang He waited expectantly for the message from the Samsara Legion. Among the three of them, Sun Qing and Chun Kun were the most frustrated. They were worried that Yi Chen still held a grudge against them for not accepting his invitation to Samsara City. In order to make amends, they didn't wait for the rebellion to be quelled, nor did they wait for the demon clan to be destroyed. They came directly to Yuzhou. This was because it represented their sincerity and determination. The two of them wanted to prove to Yi Chen that they were sincere in joining him, and that they were sincere in choosing to follow Yi Chen. As for Zhang He, just as Yi Chen had guessed, he was tricked by Sun Qing and Chun Kun. When Sun Qing and Chun Kun passed by Hejian, they encountered the demon clan and were accidentally saved by Zhang He. Sensing Zhang He's strength, Sun Qing and Chun Kun immediately thought of recruiting generals for Yi Chen. Of course, this was also for their safety, but this wasn't important. What was important was that Zhang He also wanted to follow Yi Chen to Zhuo Commandery. However, the current Zhang He was nothing more than a commoner, a nameless individual. He simply had no idea how Yi Chen would view him. Thus, he was feeling extremely uneasy in his heart. Just as the three of them were waiting anxiously, a young man in a luxurious robe strode out. The moment they saw the young man, Sun Qing, Chen Kun, and Zhang He immediately confirmed his identity. Other than general of agile cavalry, Yi Chun, it couldn't be anyone else, because the young man's bearing was majestic and extraordinary. He had the bearing of an emperor. At this moment, in the castellan's mansion of Zhua Commandery of Yuzhou, it couldn't be Yi Chun who had such an imposing manner. The truth was just as they thought. The young man was indeed Yi Chun. Ying Chuan, Sun Qing, Sun Wenruo, Chen Kun, Chen Zhongwen, pays his respects to Lord Prefecture Overseer. Sun Qing, Chen Kun, immediately bowed and greeted Yi Chun before he even stepped out of the door. Their words were filled with excitement, because Yi Chun had personally come out to welcome them. This meant that Yi Chun valued them greatly, and it also meant that Yi Chun did not care about their previous observation at all. Otherwise, Yi Chun would not have personally come out to greet them. Hejian, Zhang He, Zhang Haoyi, greets Lord Prefecture Overseer. Zhang, he also hurriedly bowed. At this moment, Zhang He's heart was still filled with frustration. The reason was very simple. He was a nobody, so it was impossible for Yi Chun to know him, and it was impossible for him to personally come out to welcome him. In Zhang He's opinion, Yi Chun had definitely come out to greet them because of Sun Qing and Chen Kun. At this moment, Yi Chun took a few steps forward and stood in front of the three of them. He glanced at them, then looked at Sun Qing and said, "I have long heard that Sun Qing, Sun Wenruo of Yingchuan is a talented ruler. I have always wanted to meet you, but I have never been able to. Since Wenruo is here today, I must drink to my heart's content. Thank you, Lord Prefecture Overseer, for your kindness. I am ashamed." Sun Qing's eyes lit up when he heard this, and he hurriedly bowed. Everyone knows of Wenruo's talent. There is no need to be humble. Yi Chun laughed and said. Sun Qing bowed again when he heard this to show his humility. Yi Chun smiled again when he saw this. He then looked at Chen Kun and said, "I have also heard of Wenruo. I've heard of Changwen's name. He's talented in governing the world. It's a great pleasure to meet him today." Chen Kun's eyes lit up with excitement when he heard this. He then bowed modestly and said, "Lord Prefecture Overseer, for your kindness." "Thank you, Lord Prefecture Overseer, for your kindness. Kun, we don't deserve it." "Ha ha, Changwen, there is no need to be humble. There is no such thing as fake talent." Yi Chun laughed and said. Chen Kun smiled and bowed again when he heard this to show his humility. Yi Chun chuckled and nodded. Then he looked at the dejected Zhang He. Yi Chun was taken aback when he saw Zhang He's lonely face. He then realized why Zhang He was like this. It was because he was a nobody and could not be put in an important position. Of course, this was only what Zhang He thought. Zhang He was one of the 4 pillars of Hebei in history, and later became one of the 5 elite generals. How could Yi Chun not know that he was a top-tier historical general? Thinking of this, Yi Chun could not help but smile. Then, he took a step forward and patted Zhang He's shoulder. "You are from Hejian?" Zhang He hurriedly bowed and said, "Lord Prefecture Overseer, I am from Hejian." Yi Chun nodded with a smile when he heard this. Right at this moment, Sun Qing looked at Yi Chun and bowed with a sincere expression. "Lord Prefecture Overseer, Qingyi is highly skilled in martial arts and is a talented commander. It was all thanks to Qingyi's protection that you and Brother Changwen were able to come to Zhua County. Otherwise, you and Brother Changwen would have already died in the mouths of the demons. Lord Prefecture Overseer, I am indeed talented. I couldn't dare to guarantee it with my head." Chen Kun hurriedly bowed after Sun Qing finished speaking. Zhang He was touched when he heard this. Sun Qing and Chen Kun did not break their promise and really recommended him to Yi Chun. Yi Chun raised his eyebrows when he heard this. Even if Sun Qing and Chen Kun did not recommend Zhang He, Yi Chun was aware of Zhang He's abilities. However, he had Zhao Yun, Dian Xiong, Zhao Meng, and Gao Shun behind him. Zhang He did not have much of a reputation, so it would be inappropriate to accept him as a general. After looking at Zhang He, Yi Chun nodded. Then, he turned his head to look at Gao Shun. Gao Shun spar with Zhang He. Yes, my lord. Gao Shun hurriedly bowed and replied. At this moment, Zhang He's eyes suddenly widened. Yi Chen's words were very obvious. He wanted to test his abilities. Zhang He was very confident in his skills. This was also his chance. Whether or not he could gain Yi Chen's attention would depend on this. Yi Chen looked at Zhang He, who was full of fighting spirit, and left with a smile, leaving space for Gao Shun and Zhang He. Gao Shun looked at Zhang He and smiled. He then cupped his fists and said, "You province, Samsara City, Gao Shun. Nice to meet you, brother Zhang He." Gao Shun was an orphan. Ever since he followed Yi Chen, he had treated Samsara City as his home. It was for this reason that Gao Shun said this. Hejian County, Zhang He. Nice to meet you, brother Gao Shun. Zhang He hurriedly cupped his fists and bowed. Please. Gao Shun smiled and extended his right hand. When he finished speaking, his fighting spirit soared. Zhang He's eyes lit up when he saw this. He extended his hand and said, "Please." When he finished speaking, his fighting spirit soared as well. Chapter 365. Gao Shun and Zhang He were at each other's throats. Their auras rose again and again, but no one was able to overpower the other. Zhao Yun, Dian Xiong, and Zhao Meng's eyes lit up when they saw this. They were martial artists and could easily tell a person's skills from their aura. It was obvious that Zhang He was not weak. After 10 minutes, Gao Shun and Zhang He threw their fists at each other and started fighting. Bang, bang, bang. The sound of fists and feet colliding rang out. The two of them fought fiercely. It was obvious that neither of them held back. Time passed by slowly. 200 moves were up. Yi Chen's lips curled up as he shouted, "Stop!" Swoosh! Gao Shun and Zhang He stopped and saluted each other. Gao Shun returned to Zhao Yun, Dian Xiong, and Zhao Meng's side. Zhang San looked at Yi Chen excitedly and bowed. Then, he quietly waited for Yi Chen to speak. In Zhang He's opinion, Gao Shun was Yi Chen's general. The fact that he could fight with Gao Shun to this extent was enough to prove his ability. Of course, his ability to command troops could not be demonstrated yet. But this was not important. What was important was Zhang He's chances of being accepted by Yi Chen would be greatly increased. It did not matter if he was not a general. As long as he was accepted by Yi Chen, he was confident that he could accumulate military merits and become a general. Yi Chen looked at Zhang He and nodded with satisfaction. Then he said, "Zhang He is indeed extraordinary. Feng Yi's skills are indeed extraordinary. I wonder if Feng Yi is willing to follow me?" Zhang He's eyes widened when he heard this. Then he knelt down on one knee excitedly and said loudly, Zhang He greets my lord. Ding. Congratulations to player Yi Chen for obtaining the loyalty of a first-rate historical general. Zhang He. The moment the system notification ended, Yi Chen laughed out loud. Then, he stepped forward and helped Zhang He up. Yi Chen glanced at Zhang He and said solemnly, "Don't worry. From today onwards, Zhang He will be the 8th general of Samsara City. Command an army of 100,000. Zhang He was stunned when he heard this. He did not expect Yi Chen to give him the position of general. Originally, he thought that he would at most be a deputy general or something like that. Who would have thought that he would directly become a general leading an army? After coming back to his senses, Zhang He was immediately overjoyed. He then solemnly knelt on one knee and loudly bowed. I swear to follow the Lord till death. If I violate this oath, may the heavens and earth destroy me." Zhang He's oath was sincere and without any falsehood. He was touched and grateful. It was because Yi Chen valued him and Yi Chen appreciated him. In this era, it was that simple for a gentleman to die for his bosom friend. Before this, Zhang He was just a commoner. He had martial prowess and talent, but no one appreciated him. But now, after meeting Yi Chen and being tested by Yi Chen, he was immediately placed in an important position. Moreover, he was given the position of commander of 100,000 soldiers. The truth was obvious. Yi Chen valued Zhang He, trusted Zhang He, and appreciated him. How could Zhang He not see this? It was because of this that Zhang He swore to follow Yi Chun till death. Ding! Zhang He's loyalty plus 10. He has advanced to loyal. Hearing the system's notification, Yi Chun laughed. He then helped Zhang He up and said, Samsara City will be like a tiger that has grown wings with a loyal man like Zhang He. I am willing to do my best for the Lord until death. Zhang He's heart warmed again when he heard this. He then solemnly bowed and said, I am willing to serve the Lord till death. Hearing this, Yi Chun smiled and nodded. He then looked at Sun Qing and Chun Kun, who looked relaxed. Before Yi Chun could speak, Sun Qing and Chun Kun both bowed and said, Sun Qing, Sun Wenruo, Chun Kun, Chen Zhongwen, is willing to follow the Lord. Please take him in. Ding. Sun Qing, a top-class historical official, and Chun Kun, a top-class historical official, wish to take you as his master. Do you accept? Hearing the system's notification, Yi Chun raised his eyebrows. Damn it, did he even have to ask? Accept. Ding. Congratulations to player Yi Chun for obtaining the loyalty of Sun Qing, a top-class historical official. Ding. Congratulations to player Yi Chun for obtaining the loyalty of Chun Kun, a top-class historical official. As soon as the system's notification ended, Yi Chun hurried forward and helped Sun Qing and Chun Kun up. He then laughed loudly and said, It is my honor and Samsara City's honor to have Wenruo and Zhongwen follow me. Hearing this, Sun Qing and Chun Kun both smiled and bowed. Greetings, my lord. The two of them had come here to seek refuge with Yi Chun. After arriving, they found that Yi Chun did not blame them for their previous observation. Instead, he valued them and Zhang He, who they had brought with them, so much. All of this told them one thing. Yi Chun valued talents and all capable people. This was undoubtedly what Sun Qing and Chun Kun wanted to see the most. Therefore, before Yi Chun took the initiative to ask, they chose to follow him directly. Yi Chun looked at Sun Qing and Chun Kun, who were solemnly greeting him. He nodded with a smile and said, Let's go. Let's go back to the mansion. Today, we'll welcome Wenruo, Zhongwen, and Zhang Yi. Thank you, my lord. Sun Qing, Chun Kun, and Zhang He felt warmth in their hearts and bowed together. Yi Chun laughed and led Sun Qing, Chun Kun, Zhang He, Guo Yi, Zhao Yun, Dian Xiong, Zhao Meng, and Gao Shun back to the Castellan's mansion. At this moment, the world announcement sounded. Ding! Congratulations to player Yi Chun for being the second person to obtain the loyalty of superclass historical officials, Sun Qing and Sun Wenruo. Player Yi Chun is rewarded with 10 million taels of gold. Ding! Congratulations to player Yi Chun for being the third person to obtain the loyalty of superclass historical officials, Chun Kun and Chen Zhongwen. Player Yi Chun is rewarded with 10 million taels of gold. Ding! Congratulations to player Yi Chun for being the seventh person to obtain the loyalty of superclass historical generals, Zhang He and Zhang Zhangyi. Player Yi Chun is rewarded with 10 million taels of gold. As soon as the world announcement ended, the world channel exploded. F*CK. F*CK. Was there a mistake? Yi Chun even took in Sun Qing, who had the potential to be the emperor's assistant. F*CK. Won't Yi Chun's territory be as stable as Mount Tai in the future? It's going to be better every day. F*CK. That's too sick. He recruited 3 of them at once. They're either superclass or superclass. That's too much. F*CK. Damn, Yi Chun already has enough first-rate historical generals. Now he has taken another one, and it's even Zhang He. Yi Chun already killed 2 of Abei's 4 pillars. Now that he has taken another one, how is Yuan Shao going to contend with Yi Chun in the future? It's not just Yuan Shao. Have you forgotten? Even Emperor Liu was killed by Yi Chun. Cao Cao's subordinates were also recruited by Yi Chun. When Yi Chun starts to conquer the world, who can stop Yi Chun? Chapter 366. You guys are worrying too much. What does it have to do with you? Yi Chun is conquering the world. The lords are the ones having a headache. Moreover, there are so many generals and officials. How can Yi Chun recruit all of them? Ha ha ha, you bunch of trash. I have to give it to you. Boss Yi-Chun is awesome. He's the most awesome. Yi-Chun is definitely the most awesome. Look at Yuzhou. Jin and the shifters have all been cleared by Yi-Chun. Look at other places. Is there any progress? I don't think so. Let them be envious and jealous. Yi-Chun will continue to recruit historical generals and officials. All right, there are also historical beauties. They will all belong to Boss Yi-Chun. The World Channel was abuzz because Yi-Chun had taken in 3 historical figures in one go. Among them, there were still people who were worried and envious. Of course, there were more people who were willing to speak up for Yi-Chun. The reason for this was because Yi-Chun had promised the players in Zhuo County to follow behind him. Yi-Chun glanced at the World Channel and stopped paying attention. The players were free to think whatever they wanted. Yi-Chun would not interfere. As long as they did not provoke Yi-Chun or plot against Yi-Chun, Yi-Chun would ignore them all. If they provoked Yi-Chun or plotted against Yi-Chun, Yi-Chun would definitely kill them all. Zhuo County, City Lord's residence. After Yi-Chun brought his subordinates back to the main hall, the subordinates greeted each other. The atmosphere quickly became lively. Before long, the maids served the dishes and wine. The welcoming banquet began. Halfway through the welcoming banquet, Guan Er and Zhang Xin brought their weapons back to the city lord's residence. The two of them greeted Sun Qing, Chun Kun, and Zhang He before joining the welcoming banquet. The lively welcoming banquet lasted until midnight, and then it ended. The next day, at dawn, Yi-Chun went straight to the drill ground. Zhuo County military drill ground, banners fluttering in the wind, long spears like a forest. Zhao Yun, Dian Xiong, Guan Er, Zhang San, Gao Shun, Zhang He, Yi, Sun Qing, and Chen Kun were already waiting here. Behind them were 410,000 Samsara soldiers. As for Zhao Meng, he led his troops to Samsara City early in the morning to carry out Yi Chen's orders. He prepared new soldiers for Samsara City, armor, weapons, war horses, provisions, and arrows. Yi Chun ascended the platform. Zhao Yun, Dian Xiong, Guan Er, Zhang San, Gao Shun, and Zhang He all knelt on one knee and loudly bowed. "Greetings, my lord." Gui Yi, Sun Qing, and Chun Kun also bowed at this moment and said, "Greetings, master." Yi Chun smiled and nodded. Then he looked at the densely packed soldiers of Samsara City. Swish! The 410,000 soldiers of Samsara City all knelt on one knee and shouted, "Greetings, my lord." The voices of the 410,000 soldiers of Samsara City were so uniform that it shook the sky. Majestic, austere, iron-blooded, and domineering. This was the aura of the 410,000 soldiers of Samsara City. At this moment, all the soldiers of Samsara City that Yi Chun brought out had reached the innate realm. The aura of any one of them was far stronger than that of an ordinary elite soldier. The aura of the 410,000 soldiers was magnificent, majestic, domineering, and invincible. Looking at the 410,000 soldiers of Samsara City below the platform, Yi Chun nodded with satisfaction. He waved his right hand, and 10 heaven-level recruitment tokens appeared in his hand. Looking at the 10 heaven-level recruitment tokens in his hand, Yi Chun could not help but raise his eyebrows. Previously, he had used 6 heaven-level recruitment tokens to increase the number of soldiers in Samsara City by 600,000. Now, Yi Chun had 10 heaven-level recruitment tokens in his hand. A heaven-level recruitment token could increase the number of soldiers to 100,000, and they were all at least C level. There might even be B-level soldiers, but when they came to Samsara City, they would be A-level or B-level soldiers, or even S-level soldiers. Thinking of this, Yi Chun could not help but smile. He chose to use it without hesitation. Ding! Player Yi Chun used heaven-level recruitment token. The number of soldiers in Samsara City has increased by 100,000. After the notification sounded 10 times in a row, the drill ground was instantly filled with light. When the light dissipated, 1 million soldiers appeared in the drill ground. After a short moment of confusion, the 1 million soldiers looked at Yi Chun in unison. Swoosh! The 1,000,000 soldiers knelt on one knee in unison and said in unison, "Greetings, my lord." Their voices were like thunder, shaking the sky. Looking at the 1,000,000 recruits of Samsara City, Yichen could not help but smile. Another 1,000,000 elite soldiers who were far superior to ordinary recruits, heaven-level recruitment tokens. The more the better. Thinking of this, Yichen could not help but raise his eyebrows. Then he looked at the 1,000,000 recruits and shouted, "From now on, you are all soldiers of Samsara. Each of you will be given a house and 5 mu of land. If you have a family, after the rebellion is quelled, you can bring them to Samsara City. The expenses will be reimbursed by Samsara City. If you have a family, you will also be given 5 mu of land according to the population. When you fight, you will be rewarded for meritorious service and punished for your mistakes. Those who die in battle will be buried. Samsara City will be responsible for raising their children. Samsara City will be responsible for taking care of their parents. Their family members will receive a pension of 1 gold every month and will be exempt from taxes for 3 years. In addition, they will be given 10 mu of land and will be exempt from taxes for life. As soon as Yichen finished speaking, the 1,000,000 recruits of Samsara City were stunned. Then they all showed expressions of ecstasy. General of Agile Cavalry. It's General of Agile Cavalry. Oh my God, I actually became a soldier of General of Agile Cavalry. Great, God bless me. I always wanted to be a soldier of General of Agile Cavalry, but I was delayed by the rebellion of the Gold Turban tribe and the invasion of the Demon Clan. I didn't expect that I would directly become a soldier of General of Agile Cavalry. Haha. Ancestors bless me. I really became a soldier of General of Agile Cavalry. The 1,000,000 new recruits of Samsara City shouted one after another. At this moment, they were very excited because they had become soldiers of General of Agile Cavalry, Yichen. For them, this was undoubtedly the happiest thing, and it was what they had been looking forward to. As for the reason, it was very simple. Because Yichen's prestige was unparalleled in the world. Because Samsara City's wealth and benefits were the best in the world. As long as they became Yichen's soldiers, their families would not starve, and they could also make contributions. The people in this era thought very simply. They wanted to eat enough, wear warm clothes, and bring glory to their ancestors. And it was not difficult for the burly men to achieve this at this moment. As long as they became General of Agile Cavalry, Governor of Yuzhou, Yichen's soldiers, they could achieve this, because their lord, Yichen, was the unparalleled General of Agile Cavalry. He commanded troops like a god and had made outstanding military achievements. What's more, he loved his soldiers as if they were his children. Chapter 367. Yichen glanced at the millions of recruits who had quieted down. His expression turned solemn as he shouted, "The Golden Turban rebelled, and the Demon Clan invaded the Han Dynasty." Countless people of the Han Dynasty were separated from their families. Those who are alive are struggling at death's door, living in fear. Those who are dead don't have a complete body, and their souls have become wandering ghosts. Perhaps there will be no one to worship or mourn for them in the future. You are all Han people. Perhaps you have encountered misfortune, or perhaps you will encounter misfortune soon. At this point, Yichen's eyes suddenly widened, and then he shouted, "Are you willing to continue to be ravaged by the Golden Turban, be robbed of food and money, or even be forced to join the Golden Turban and kill the people of the Han Dynasty?" As soon as Yichen finished speaking, the 1,000,000 new recruits of Samsara City felt their hearts grow heavier and heavier as they listened to Yichen's words. No, no, no. The millions of recruits roared, and their voices shook the sky. No one wanted their family to be persecuted, no one wanted to be robbed of everything by the Golden Turban, and no one wanted to die. Seeing this, Yichen shouted again, "Are you willing to let your family be slaughtered and devoured by the Demon Clan? After death, not even a trace of their bodies will be left." No, no, no. The millions of recruits were furious. They raised their arms and roared, and their voices shook the world. No one wanted to be devoured by the Demon Clan, let alone their family. Compared with the Golden Turban, The demon clan was more infuriating and hateful, because there was only one result when encountering the demon clan: being devoured. Not even a trace of their bodies would be left. Seeing this, Yi Chun nodded in satisfaction and then shouted, "Let's go. For the human clan, for your family, are you willing to fight against the Golden Turban and the demon clan?" Yes, yes, yes. The millions of recruits were full of fighting spirit and shouted loudly. Seeing this, Yi Chen's eyes suddenly widened, and then he shouted, "Very good. Today's training is over. Tomorrow, we will go to war. We will wipe out the Golden Turban and kill all the demon clans in the world." "Yes, my lord." The million new soldiers all knelt on one knee and shouted. Yi Chen nodded, then looked at Guan Er, Zhang San, and Zhang He. Yun Chang, Ida, Feng Yi, each select 100,000 soldiers and train them. Don't slack off. Yes, my lord. When Guan Er, Zhang San, and Zhang He heard this, their expressions instantly became solemn. Then they cupped their fists together and shouted. Yi Chen nodded, then looked at Zhao Yun, Dian Xiong, and Gao Shun. Yun Zheng, Dian Xiong, Gao Shun, the rest of the recruits will be trained by you. Do not slack off. Yes, my lord. Upon hearing this, Zhao Yun, Dian Xiong, and Gao Shun heavily nodded their heads. Then they bowed and cupped their fists as they replied loudly. Yi Chen glanced at his subordinates, nodded, and then turned to leave the drill ground. Gui Yi, Sun Qing, and Chen Kun followed closely behind and left the drill ground. Zhua County, Main Street. The players all looked in the direction of the drill ground in shock. Over there, the million people roared in unison. Over and over again, they roared in unison. What they didn't expect was that the roars of the million new soldiers were filled with endless anger and fighting spirit. That fighting spirit shook their hearts and went straight to their souls. How many people are roaring? Their fighting spirit is so high. It should be 1,000,000 people. I remember that Boss Yi Chun received 10 heaven-grade soldier recruitment orders from the Oath of the Three in the Peach Garden mission. This is the difference between Boss Yi Chun and the others. The soldiers of the others don't have such a high fighting spirit, nor such a high fighting spirit. No wonder Boss Yi Chun is so strong. With such soldiers, what can't he win? You're thinking too much. Boss Yi Chun's strength isn't just because of the soldiers. It's because Boss Yi Chun is too awesome. That's why he brought out such a group of awesome soldiers. That's true. Luckily, Boss Yi Chun didn't chase us away. We're so lucky to be able to follow Boss Yi Chun. That's right. It's safe to follow Boss Yi Chun. Moreover, Boss Yi Chun won't rob us of the items we get from killing monsters. He's not like the other overlords who are like hungry wolves when they see something. That's for sure. Otherwise, why would I choose to follow Boss Yi Chun? Pay attention, all of you. When we start killing gold turbans in the demon clan, don't be jealous when you see the equipment and cultivation methods all over the ground. Damn it, whoever dares to plot against us will be our enemy. Yes, that's right. If anyone dares to have any ideas, we'll kill them together. The players in Zhua County were discussing among themselves. At this moment, many of the players knew Yi Chen's way of doing things. As long as they didn't provoke Yi Chun, everything was fine. If anyone dared to provoke Yi Chun, they would definitely be killed. Because they knew this, the players in Zhua County began to pay attention to this. However, even if they decided to follow Yi Chun, no one could guarantee that no one would be jealous and try to steal the items that Yi Chun dropped. Because they were also players, they knew how despicable human nature could be. Moreover, they had seen many similar situations. When good items were dropped, there would always be people who would try to steal them. Thus, their purpose in issuing warnings was so that others would not provoke Yi Chun. Otherwise, no one would be able to follow Yi Chun. At this moment, a group of women appeared in Zhua County. They were led by a mature woman and went straight to the city lord's mansion. There were at least 10,000 of them. The mature woman was followed by a lowly, a model, and a girl who looked like a school belle. The appearance of this group of female players instantly attracted the attention of the other players. Gosh, what's going on? Why are there so many women? They seem to be from the same faction. Beauty Alliance? It must be the Beauty Alliance. They're the group of women who built Beauty Town. No way, aren't they in Yangzhou? Why do they come so far to Yuzhou? Who the hell knows? Could he be here to follow Boss Yichen? Damn, these women are so scheming. They're using the beauty trap. Sigh, it can't be helped. They're women. This is a natural advantage. Gosh, this is unreasonable. While the players were discussing, Yi Chan led Gu Yi, Sun Qing, Chun Kun, and the Samsara Legion to the City Lord's mansion. Along the way, the players took the initiative to give way. Just as Yi Chan reached the corner of the street where the City Lord's mansion was located, a clear shout was heard. Yi Chan! The familiar yet strange voice stunned Yi Chan when he heard it. Swoosh! The 10 Kiliarchs of the Samsara Legion unsheathed their long swords and appeared in front of Yi Chan. They looked warily at the group of women walking from the opposite street. Chapter 368. The Samsara Legion was Yi Chen's personal guard. They would treat anything that posed a threat to Yi Chan with caution. Even if a group of people appeared out of nowhere, all of them were women, they did not let down their guard in the slightest. A faint murderous intent and an incomparably powerful aura instantly rushed towards the group of women walking across the street. The reason why the murderous intent was not strong was because the group of women had not shown any hostility. Otherwise, the Samsara Legion would have attacked them directly. At this moment, Yi Chan came back to his senses and looked at the group of people across the street. Hu Xiaoya's familiar yet unfamiliar face instantly entered Yi Chen's eyes. The moment he saw Hu Xiaoya, Yi Chan sighed inwardly. It really was her. Yi Chen's heart did not waver when it came to this former classmate. Although she was very beautiful and had a great figure, to Yi Chan, Hu Xiaoya was just a passerby. Before the meteor fell, Hu Xiaoya was a favored child of heaven. Although her family background was not prominent, it was still not something that Yi Chan could reach. Because Yi Chan was an orphan, he had no one to rely on. He could only rely on himself to live a humble but proud life. At that time, Yi Chan and Hu Xiaoya's interactions were close to zero. To put it simply, Yi Chan and Hu Xiaoya were people who lived in two different worlds. After the meteor fell, Yi Chan and Hu Xiaoya were still people from two different worlds. It was just that their positions were swapped, and the gap between them grew bigger and bigger. This was because after the meteor fell, Yi Chan relied on the memories of his previous life to lead in every aspect and quickly became the #1 person in the human race. His influence and strength rapidly grew and became stronger. Now, Yi Chan was so strong that everyone had to look up to him. Whether it was in terms of wealth, strength, or influence, Yi Chan was at the top of the human race, and he was the only one. As for Hu Xiaoya, after the meteor fell, she was surrounded by danger several times. If she had not coincidentally met Yi Chan, Hu Xiaoya would have died long ago. Towards the end, he became even more unknown and did not have any achievements. However, even so, Yi Chan and Hu Xiaoya's conversation was still the same as before. They didn't say more than a few words, and they didn't even see each other after that. Even though Yi Chan knew that Hu Xiaoya was in the same city safe zone, Yi Chan had never thought of looking for her. As for the reason, it was very simple. Yi Chan did not have any special feelings for Hu Xiaoya. He did not have any in the past, and he would not have any now. However, Hu Xiaoya was Yi Chen's classmate. This was an unchanging fact. After taking a glance at Hu Xiaoya, Yi Chan then looked at the women around Hu Xiaoya. In the next second, Yi Chan frowned. Because Yi Chan recognized the group of women across the street. It was Beauty's Alliance, who lived in the same city as Yi Chan. At this moment, during the Golden Turban Rebellion and the Demon Clan's invasion, the Beauty's Alliance had traveled thousands of miles to Yuzhou and even appeared in Jue County. It was obvious that they had come with a purpose. In the past, every time Yi Chan made a world announcement, the Beauty's Alliance would always congratulate him and invite Yi Chan to Beauty Town as a guest. In the end, the Beauty's Alliance even planned to use Yi Chen's influence to develop the Beauty's Alliance. Unfortunately, in the end, Yi Chen broke it by saying that he would not ally with anyone. Logically speaking, the Beauty's alliance should not have appeared here, and they should not have specially come to Yi Chen, because Yi Chen had already made his stance clear. However, the truth was the opposite. They had come, and they came with tens of thousands of people. Thinking of this, Yi Chen was silent for a moment, then said, "Leave." "Yes, master." Hearing this, the 10 Kiliarchs turned around and bowed, then returned to the Samsara Legion. Across the street, Beauty's alliance. That scared me to death. Were those people Yi Youzhou's guards? They're so strong, even stronger than Sister Yao Yao. Seeing the Kiliarchs of the Samsara Legion return to the Samsara Legion, little Loli immediately heaved a sigh of relief, then said in shock. The leader of the Beauty's alliance, Li Mengyao, hurriedly looked at little Loli and whispered, "Meng Meng, don't talk too much later. Yi Chen is different from ordinary people. If you anger him, he will not hesitate to attack. No matter who it is, he will not show mercy." "Sister Yao Yao, I promise I won't speak carelessly." When the little Loli heard this, she suddenly shivered and nodded her head heavily in response. Li Mengyao nodded, then looked at Hu Xiaoye, who had a complicated expression. After a moment of silence, she said, "Xiaoye, I know you're in a difficult position, but the Beauty's alliance has been forced into a corner. If we don't get his help, our Beauty's alliance in the game will be taken away by others. If that happens, we will also lose everything in the real world. When that happens, not many of our sisters in the Beauty's alliance will be left alive. If we simply die, that will be the end of it. I'm just afraid that our sisters will become someone else's sex slaves. Do you understand?" Sister Yao Yao. Hearing this, Hu Xiaoye's expression changed, and she called out, "Xiaoye, we're not here to beg for help. Just remember this." Li Mengyao took a deep breath, then said in a deep voice, "Okay." Hearing this, Hu Xiaoye regained some of her composure, then nodded and said, "Yes, the Beauty's alliance was a street away from Yi Chen, but their conversation was still heard by Yi Chen." Not begging for help. Could it be that they want to make a deal with me? They want to make a deal with me, but they have to bring Hu Xiaoye here. Are they trying to play the emotional card to increase their bargaining chips? Quite interesting. Thinking about this, Yi Chen looked at Gui Yi, Sun Qing, and Chen Kun and said, "You guys go back to the residence first." Gui Yi, Sun Qing, and Chen Kun looked at each other, then bowed in unison. "Yes, Lord." Yi Chen nodded, then waved at the Beauty's alliance, indicating for them to come over. Seeing this, a trace of helplessness flashed across Li Mengyao's face, along with a hint of anger. This was because Yi Chen's actions were very rude. No matter how she looked at it, it was as though he was treating a servant. Although she was unhappy, Li Mengyao instantly hid her displeasure and brought Hu Xiaoye and the little Loli over to Yi Chen. After waving his hand, Yi Chen had been observing Li Mengyao. Although he was far away, Yi Chen was already at the mortal evolution state. It was too easy for him to see Li Mengyao's expression. After seeing Li Mengyao's flash of helplessness and anger, Yi Chen couldn't help but raise the corner of his mouth. She had strong self-esteem, and, at the same time, she knew how to size up the situation. Unfortunately, her cultivation wasn't perfect, and she couldn't completely hide her emotions. She was scheming, and ambitious. Unfortunately, without the heart of a powerful person, she couldn't become a powerful person. As for becoming an overlord, it was even harder to become one. Thinking about this, Yi Chen looked at Li Mengyao, Hu Xiaoye, and the little Loli. He sized the three of them up, then his gaze landed on Li Mengyao. When Li Mengyao saw Yi Chen's domineering and slightly aggressive gaze, her heart instantly started beating rapidly. Trying hard to stabilize her rapidly beating heart, Li Mengyao imitated the ancient people and bowed to Yi Chen respectfully. Li Mengyao greets Lord State Overseer Wang Mengmeng. Hu Xiaoye greets Lord State Overseer. Hu Xiaoye and the little Loli also bowed at this moment. Chapter 369. Yi Chen raised his eyebrows when he heard how the three of them addressed him. Yi Chen was not proud of the honorific, but because the three women were very smart. They did not call Yi Chun by his name, but used honorifics instead. Otherwise, they would definitely be scolded or even arrested by the Samsara Legion. Because this was the three kingdoms, there was an order of seniority. The three of them were commoners with no official position and no status. The reason why Hu Xiaoya was not reprimanded by the Samsara Legion when she called out Yi Chen's name was simple. Because there was something different in Hu Xiaoya's voice. It sounded like the love between a man and a woman. However, it was not the case after careful consideration. Apart from this, Hu Xiaoya's voice also carried a hint of bitterness, helplessness, and sadness. It was for this reason that the 10 Kiliarchs of the Samsara Legion did not act rashly after Hu Xiaoya called out Yi Chen's name. They only stood in front of Yi Chun. Otherwise, Hu Xiaoya would have been reprimanded immediately. Thinking of this, Yi Chun nodded slightly, then looked at Li Mengyao and asked, "What are you doing in Zhuo Commandery?" Li Mengyao was stunned when she heard this. She did not expect Yi Chun to be so straightforward. There was no friendliness of meeting an old classmate, let alone reminiscing about the old days. This made many of the excuses she had prepared go up in smoke. After coming back to her senses, Li Mengyao sighed and then said, "Your Excellency, we are here to make a deal with you." She realized that Yi Chun could not be judged by common sense. If she dared to continue to curry favor with Yi Chun, it was very likely that Yi Chun would leave or even expel them from Zhuo Commandery. "Speak. What kind of deal?" Hearing this, Yi Chun nodded and said, "Beauty Alliance wants to be protected by your Excellency. For this, Beauty Alliance is willing to become a subsidiary territory of Samsara City." Li Mengyao took a deep breath and said after a long exhale. Wang Mengmeng and Hu Xiaoya were both stunned by Li Mengyao's words. It was clear that Li Mengyao's words weren't part of the deal they had discussed earlier. Otherwise, Wang Mengmeng and Hu Xiaoya wouldn't have been so stunned. Yi Chun glanced at Wang Mengmeng and Hu Xiaoya before looking at Li Mengyao. "I don't need any subordinate territories." "Why?" Li Mengyao was taken aback when she heard this and hurriedly asked. Previously, she had the idea of using Yi Chun and Samsara City, so she had always wanted to form an alliance with Yi Chun. However, Yi Chun's words ruined her plan. Now that Beauty's alliance was in danger, she came to Zhuo County to make a deal with Yi Chun. However, after meeting Yi Chun, she realized that Yi Chun was not someone who could be easily moved. That was why she changed the bargaining chip on the spot. In her opinion, Beauty's alliance becoming a subordinate territory of Samsara City was the best solution. Moreover, she didn't have to pay too much. She could even get more help from Yi Chun. Beauty's alliance, on the other hand, only needed to pay the price of submitting. At most, they would have to pay the price of the women in Beauty's alliance. However, this way, they would be 100% safe and could continue to grow stronger. In the world after the meteor fall, safety was very important, but so was strength. If she followed Yi Chun, she could easily obtain all of this. Because Yi Chun was very powerful, so powerful that he was invincible. However, Yi Chun wasn't interested at all. If Yi Chun hadn't taken in several top-notch historical beauties, Li Mengyao would have suspected that Yi Chun was gay. But in fact, Yi Chun obviously wasn't gay. Wang Mengmeng and Hu Xiaoya, who were beside Li Mengyao, both widened their eyes at the same time. They didn't expect that Yi Chun would refuse. After all, Li Mengyao's proposal was equivalent to giving Beauty's alliance to Yi Chun. Who could have imagined that Yi Chun would not even consider it, directly rejecting it? Yi Chun glanced at the shocked Li Mengyao, Wang Mengmeng, and Hu Xiaoya and smiled. "It's the same to me whether I have a subordinate territory or not, because the world will only be mine, and I don't lack women." As soon as Yi Chun finished speaking, Li Mengyao, Wang Mengmeng, and Hu Xiaoya were all stunned. Then they realized what Yi Chun meant. Yi Chun wanted to conquer the world, and he was 100% confident that he could unify the world. There was no need for him to help Beauty's alliance for a subordinate territory. Moreover, if Yi Chun wanted women, he could summon a group of them with a wave of his hand. They were even comparable to Beauty's alliance. To put it simply, Beauty's alliance was dispensable to Yi Chun. It wasn't important at all. Thinking of Yi Chen's strength, Yi Chen's current position, and the world announcements that Yi Chen made, as well as his past deeds, the three women simultaneously thought that this was indeed the case. At this thought, the three women's expressions changed. There was only one reason why Beauty's alliance was useless to Yi Chen, and that was because Yi Chen wouldn't help Beauty's alliance at all. Yi Chen, Hu Xiaoya looked at Yi Chen anxiously and called out. However, before she could finish, she was interrupted by the 10 Kiliarchs of the Samsara Legion. How dare you? Previously, the 10 Kiliarchs weren't clear about the relationship between Hu Xiaoya and Yi Chen. Now, they were 100% sure of one thing. Hu Xiaoya and their lord, Yi Chen, weren't in a romantic relationship at all. How dare she call their lord, Yi Chen, by his name when they weren't in a romantic relationship? Naturally, they were furious. Therefore, they didn't hesitate to scold her. Yi Chen waved his hand, indicating for the Samsara Legion to be quiet. Then, he looked at Hu Xiaoya and said, "You've helped me. That's the truth. I won't deny it. However, I've also saved you more than once." When Hu Xiaoya heard this, she couldn't help but be stunned. Then, her face turned extremely pale. It wasn't because she was afraid, nor was it because she remembered that Yi Chen had saved her. It was because she was heartbroken. She thought of her brother, Commander Hu had passed away. In Hu Xiaoya's opinion, Yi Chen couldn't possibly know that she had warned Commander Hu not to reveal Yi Chen's identity. Now, Yi Chen directly said that Hu Xiaoya had helped him. The truth was very obvious. Yi Chen knew about that matter. The person who told Yi Chen must be Hu Xiaoya's brother, Commander Hu. It was because she thought of Commander Hu that Hu Xiaoya suddenly became sad. After all, Commander Hu had already been killed by Commander Niao. Seeing Hu Xiaoya's inexplicable sadness, Yi Chen sighed inwardly. It wasn't Yi Chen's intention to remind Hu Xiaoya of Commander Hu. However, there were some things that Yi Chen still had to say, and he had to make it clear. This was because Hu Xiaoya was Yi Chen's classmate. This was an indisputable fact. Yi Chen didn't want Hu Xiaoya to be used by Li Mengyao again when the Beauty's alliance encountered any difficulties in the future. Naturally, Yi Chen could choose to ignore it, but it wouldn't be a good thing. To be honest, there was only gratitude between Yi Chen and Hu Xiaoya. Moreover, it was Yi Chen's kindness to Hu Xiaoya. This was because Yi Chen had saved Hu Xiaoya more than once. And Hu Xiaoya had only done for Yi Chen to prevent Commander Hu from revealing Yi Chen's identity. Perhaps it was because Yi Chen had saved Hu Xiaoya before, and Hu Xiaoya wanted to repay his kindness. It could also be because of other reasons. Regardless of the reason, Hu Xiaoya had helped Yi Chen. This was a fact. However, Yi Chen didn't know Hu Xiaoya anything. Thinking of this, Yi Chen glanced at Hu Xiaoya, and then said in a deep voice, "It's useless to think too much about the past. People should live in the present and not immerse themselves in the past. That will only waste your time. This was nothing in the past, but now it's no different from suicide." At this point, Yi Chen fell silent for a moment before continuing. "I can help the Beauty's alliance without any compensation, but only this once. However, I won't go there directly. I'll only go there after Luoyang is settled. If the Beauty's alliance is destroyed, I'll provide the necessary support and help you recover to your original level." Chapter 370. Li Mingyao's eyes lit up at Yi Chen's words. She didn't expect things to take such a turn. Not only did Yi Chen agree, but he didn't want any reward. Hu Xiaoya's emotional card had worked. Hu Xiaoya was taken aback. In her opinion, it was unlikely that Yi Chen would agree to help Beauty's alliance, nor would he change his mind because of her. Even if she was Yi Chen's classmate, it was impossible. Yi Chen's attitude toward the outside world had always been the same, domineering and ruthless. No matter who it was, Yi Chen wouldn't care and wouldn't change his mind because of anyone. Just like when Commander Hu wanted to target Yi Chen, if he hadn't stopped halfway, Yi Chen would have killed him. Hu Xiaoya remembered this very clearly. She had helped Yi Chen, but Yi Chen had saved her 3 times. If anything, she owed Yi Chen, not Yi Chen. Therefore, in Hu Xiaoya's opinion, Yi Chen wouldn't change his mind because of her. But now, Yi Chun was really going to help Beauty's alliance without asking for any reward. This was beyond her expectations. Could it be? Hu Xiaoya suddenly thought of something and blushed. Yi Chun frowned when he saw the strange expression on Hu Xiaoya's face. Then he said, "After this incident, Beauty's alliance's debt to you can be repaid. To be more precise, Beauty's alliance still owes you a great debt, and my classmate relationship with you ends here." Hu Xiaoya, who was still guessing, froze when she heard this. Then, her face turned as white as a sheet. Yi Chun's meaning was clear. Yi Chun was going to help her repay Beauty's alliance for saving her life. The price was that Yi Chun would no longer acknowledge their classmate relationship. Even if they met again, he would only treat her as a stranger. Therefore, she shouldn't use their classmate relationship to approach Yi Chun, because Yi Chun wouldn't talk to her anymore. At this moment, Hu Xiaoya suddenly felt like she had lost the most precious thing in her heart. That feeling made her heart ache so much that she couldn't breathe. In fact, Hu Xiaoya herself wasn't sure how she felt about Yi Chun. However, it was undeniable that Hu Xiaoya's heart was in pain at that very moment. "Yi Chun," Hu Xiaoya hurriedly called out after coming back to her senses. "Xiaoya." Li Mingyao hurriedly grabbed Hu Xiaoya's arm, motioning her to stop. She didn't want Hu Xiaoya to change her mind. Otherwise, Yi Chun would definitely give up on helping the Beauty Alliance. Beauty's alliance really would be finished, especially in the real world. Once the city's safe cities alliance's protection is, if they couldn't develop quickly. Didn't die's alliances. At any time, they could be trampled on, and ravaged. Li Mingyao didn't want to live that kind of dark life. It was too painful for her. Of course, she didn't want to die either. Therefore, Li Mingyao didn't hesitate to stop Hu Xiaoya from continuing. Hu Xiaoya's face was full of anxiety and embarrassment. Then, under Li Mengyao's pleading gaze, she fell silent. Beauty's alliance had done her a favor. If it weren't for them, she would have been raped to death by Serene. Yi Chun glanced at Hu Xiaoya, then looked at Li Mengyao. "If you want to live, if you don't want to be raped, there's nothing wrong with using some tricks. I understand that. It's human nature. But that doesn't mean that your tricks and schemes can help you achieve your goal. In the real world, if you want to live well, you have to rely on yourself." Li Mingyao's expression changed at Yi Chun's words, because Yi Chun's words were very simple and also very crude. He directly told her that her scheme, had been seen through by Yi Chun. After coming to her senses, Li Mingyao fell silent for a moment, then bowed solemnly to Yi Chun. "Mingyao will always remember your Excellency's generosity and willingness to help Beauty's alliance. Mingyao swears that she will repay your Excellency's kindness in the future. The heavens can be my witness." Li Mingyao's voice was sonorous and forceful. With that, her entire temperament underwent a great transformation. She was no longer coquettish and seductive. Instead, she was firm and unyielding. Yi Chun raised an eyebrow at the change in Li Mingyao's aura. So this was her original temperament. If Beauty's alliance wasn't in trouble, she probably wouldn't have revealed her weak, coquettish, and seductive side. Thinking of this, Yi Chun shook his head and said, "There's no need. There's no need. Focus on developing Beauty's alliance. Let those who follow you and live well. That's what you should do." Li Mingyao's heart was filled with disappointment when she heard this. She didn't expect that Yi Chun wouldn't even want her repayment. She sincerely wanted to repay Yi Chun, but Yi Chun didn't want her repayment. She couldn't accept this. However, when she thought of how Yi Chun was so strong that all players had to look up to him, Li Mingyao felt powerless. Whether it was in terms of strength or influence, Yi Chun was #1 in the human race. He really didn't need her to repay him. Li Mingyao's expression darkened at this thought. She bowed and said, "Yes, Your Excellency." Yi Chun glanced at Li Mingyao and asked, "Who are you? Who wants to attack Beauty's town?" For Yi Chun, helping Beauty's town was just a matter of convenience. After all, Yi Chun wanted to farm all the golden scarf and shifters in the Great Han Dynasty. He would definitely go to Yangzhou. Of course, Yi Chun wasn't a good person. Even if he helped Beauty's alliance, he wouldn't accept any of them. This was because people in the real world were fickle. They might be grateful today, but they might attack you tomorrow. As long as there was an opportunity, as long as the benefits were shocking, all kinds of schemes could appear. Yi Chun, on the other hand, was undoubtedly a huge gold mine to all human players. Moreover, it was a purple gold mine. Killing Yi Chun and controlling Yi Chun would give them great benefits. Therefore, Yi Chun never thought of changing his mind. Samsara City, whether it was in the real world or in the game, would not accept anyone. Even Beauty's Alliance was no exception. Even if Beauty's Alliance had many beauties, Yi Chun wouldn't be interested. There were plenty of beauties in the game world, and the beauties in Beauty's Alliance couldn't compare to the super beauties. Therefore, Beauty's Alliance wasn't attractive to Yi Chun at all. When Li Mengyao heard Yi Chun's question, her calm face suddenly became furious. She gritted her teeth and said, "It's those bastards from the sanctuary." When Yi Chun heard this, he couldn't help but be surprised. He didn't expect the sanctuary to be the ones who wanted Beauty's Alliance. The sanctuary was indeed a huge group of forces. They had over 1 million players and hundreds of thousands of territories under their control. The most powerful of them all was Sanctuary Town. In the previous life, the sanctuary only officially showed its power after Dong Da's rebellion. It was also then that the players knew the true strength of the sanctuary. No wonder Beauty's Alliance was in such a big crisis. It seemed that the sanctuary had chosen the Golden Scar faction to attack. Chapter 371. However, why didn't the Holy Church wait for Dong Da's chaos to be exposed like in his previous life? Instead, they bared their fangs now. This way, the players who were robbed by the Golden Scar faction would definitely hate the Holy Church and become their enemy. The Alliance Master of the Holy Church, Li Chunfeng, shouldn't be so stupid. Could it be that he couldn't wait? Or did something happen? Thinking of this, Yi Chun frowned slightly. He then looked at Li Mengyao and asked, "Did Li Chunfeng mention anything to you?" Li Mengyao was stunned when she heard this. She didn't expect Yi Chun, who never interacted with other players, to know who the Alliance Master of the Holy Church was. After coming back to her senses, Li Mengyao shook her head and said, "Li Chunfeng is dead. Li Chunfeng has been killed. Mu Qingfeng is now in charge of the sanctuary." Yi Chun's eyes widened when he heard Mu Qingfeng's name. The Alliance Master of the Holy Church, Li Chunfeng, had seen Pangu split open the sky when the game first started and even obtained the Khanate cultivation technique. However, he was eventually replaced by someone who took away everything that belonged to him. That person was Mu Qingfeng. Yi Chun didn't care if Li Chunfeng was dead or alive, but Yi Chun couldn't ignore Mu Qingfeng. To be precise, Mu Qingfeng was one of Yi Chun's targets. This was because one of the 5 elemental spiritual pearls, the wood spiritual pearl, ended up in Mu Qingfeng's hands. One of the reasons why Yi Chun was still in the 3 Kingdoms beginner zone was to refine all the 5 elemental spiritual pearls and advance to the 5 elemental divine constitution. Only by advancing to the 5 elemental divine constitution could Yi Chun rise quickly in the Eldritch world and not fall behind those Khanate gods and demons. This was also one of the reasons why Yi Chun was unwilling to ascend. Therefore, Yi Chun wanted to gather the other 5 elemental spiritual pearls. Mu Qingfeng, who had obtained the wood spiritual pearl, was the person that Yi Chun was 100% looking for. Who would have thought that Mu Qingfeng, who was supposed to appear 3 months later, would suddenly appear? Yi Chun naturally couldn't ignore him. The history of his previous life had changed. Li Chunfeng was probably killed by Mu Qingfeng's wood spirit orb 3 months later. Could it be that Mu Qingfeng had already obtained the wood spirit orb? Yi Chun narrowed his eyes and asked Mengyao, "How did Mu Qingfeng kill Li Chunfeng?" When Li Mengyao heard this, she was stunned again. She did not expect Yi Chun to pay attention to this. After thinking for a moment, Li Mengyao opened her mouth and said, "I don't know the details. The Templar is tight-lipped, but Mu Qingfeng seems to be very powerful. He knows magic and can summon a forest with a wave of his hand. It's the kind of forest that eats people." This was shouted by those who were hostile to the Templar in the safe city where the Templar was located. However, those who didn't listen to his orders were all killed by Mu Qingfeng. The current Templar Hall has more than 5 million members. They're very strong. When Li Mingyao said this, a strong sense of powerlessness rose in her heart. This was because the Saint Hall had millions of members. It wasn't something a small beauty's alliance could contend against. When Yi Chun heard this, his eyes widened. It really was the wood spirit orb. Mu Qingfeng's attack method that Li Mingyao mentioned was one of the abilities of the wood spirit orb. Others might not know, but how could Yi Chun not know about it? He did not expect Mu Qingfeng to have obtained the wood spirit orb so early. He even understood how to use it. When he thought of this, Yi Chun raised his eyebrows. He then looked at Li Mingyao and asked, "Does Mu Qingfeng want all of you to move to his city to serve him? Otherwise, why would he come here personally to capture all of you and turn you into his sex slaves?" Hearing those words, Li Mingyao was startled. That was because what Yi Chun said was the truth. In fact, it was not much different from what Mu Qingfeng had said. When she came back to her senses, Li Mingyao nodded heavily. She then gritted her teeth and said, "Yes." When he heard this, Yi Chun curled his lips in disdain. Mu Qingfeng, a pervert, was still the same as in his previous life. In his previous life, there were 3 great perverts. One was young Master Niu, one was Tian Boiwang, and the last one was Mu Qingfeng. Of course, young Master Niu and Tian Boiwang were killed by Yi Chun before they could even start plucking women. Now, only Mu Qingfeng was left of the 3 great perverts. In his previous life, Mu Qingfeng had no shortage of women. Without exception, he would throw all the women he had played with to his subordinates. No matter how his subordinates tormented those women, Mu Qingfeng would not care. Even if they died or were crippled, it did not matter. Of course, this was not important. What was important was that the women Mu Qingfeng had slept with would lose their primordial yin. He did not know any cultivation method to pluck yin and replenish yang, but he had the wood spirit orb. Apart from giving him the ability to control wood elemental energy, the wood spirit orb was also used as a medium for plucking. This was because the wood spirit orb not only had the ability to multiply endlessly and control plants, it also had the ability to absorb life essence. Mu Qingfeng relied on the wood spirit orb's ability to absorb life essence to endlessly ravage women and increase his own cultivation. Using the wood spirit orb to pluck was much, much better than plucking yin and replenishing yang. Moreover, it was the purest primordial yin without any impurities. It was also because of this reason that after Mu Qingfeng started the path of plucking, his cultivation level increased rapidly without any negative effects. However, the women who were plucked by him had a miserable ending. Although they would not age immediately, nor would they die immediately, one day was equivalent to 1 year of their lifespan. This process would continue every day until they died. Of course, this was just a theory. In reality, those women would die completely after 2 or 3 days, or even 1 day after being plucked by Mu Qingfeng. There were few exceptions. This was because Mu Qingfeng's subordinates knew that they would continue to age and age. Therefore, when those women were still young, they unscrupulously trampled, stepped on, tortured, and then killed them. Every day, many women's corpses were thrown out of St. Hall City. Sometimes there were dozens, sometimes there were hundreds. No one cared, and no one dared to care. Because Mu Qingfeng's cultivation level was high, his strength was strong, and his influence was great. No one could do anything to him. Until Yi Chun was reborn, Mu Qingfeng was still doing this. This idiot was still as arrogant and domineering as in his previous life. Now that he had the ability, he would unreservedly release his sinister, despicable, shameless, and beastly side. But now, there were not many people who could resist the wood spirit orb's attack. Even the current demon race could not resist the attack of a connate spiritual treasure. However, if his cultivation level was not high enough, he could not activate the wood spirit orb that many times. Thinking of this, Yi Chun curled his lips in disdain. He then looked at Li Mingyao and said, You can return to Yangzhou, or you can follow behind me like the players in Jue County and kill those fleeing demon race or Jinjin. Chapter 372. Hearing this, Li Mengyao was stunned for a moment and then became ecstatic. Following Yi Chun to kill the Demon Clan and Golden Scarf was a great thing for Li Mengyao and the Beauties Alliance, because in this way they would be very safe and could keep upgrading and getting equipment. They would not have to worry about being killed by the Golden Scarf and the Demon Clan. Of course, she preferred to kill the Demon Clan and Golden Scarf with Yi Chun. That way, she could get more benefits. Unfortunately, Yi Chun asked her to kill the escaping Demon Clan and Golden Scarf. But this was enough to make Li Mengyao excited. Yi Chun glanced at the surprised Li Mengyao and then said in a low voice, "Don't try to test me. You only have one chance. If you dare to pick up the items on a battlefield, you will be killed by the Demon Clan. Or when the army of Samsara City is cleaning up the Demon Clan and Golden Scarf, you can secretly attack those who did not escape. I don't care if you are women or not." When Li Mengyao heard this, she shuddered in fear. The reason for that was because Yi Chun's words were extremely cold. Furthermore, they contained a faint killing intent. Li Mengyao had a feeling that if anyone from the Beauties Alliance dared to go against Yi Chun's will, Yi Chun would definitely kill everyone from the Beauties Alliance. Moreover, he wouldn't give them any face. Yi Chun glanced at the frightened Li Mengyao and then said, "I am not a savior. I'm not a savior, and I'm not a good person either. If you want good equipment and good cultivation techniques, go ahead and kill the fiends. Kill the Golden Scarf, and the drops will be yours. Yes, Your Excellency, Mengyao swears that the Beauties Alliance will never disobey your orders." Li Mengyao tried her best to steady her thumping heart. Then she bowed and said loudly. Hearing this, Yi Chun nodded and turned to go to the governor's mansion. Li Mengyao looked at Yi Chun's back as he left. Only when Yi Chun entered the city lord's mansion did she let out a long sigh of relief. Yi Chun gave her a lot of pressure. Even after Yi Chun left, that pressure still lingered in her heart. Big Sis Yao Yao, big brother Yi Chun, seems to have been deceived. He doesn't trust anyone. Wang Mengmeng looked at Li Mengyao and said with some heartache. When Li Mengyao heard this, she was slightly taken aback. He doesn't trust anyone, not because he's been deceived, but because there are too many despicable people in this world, too many hypocrisies, too many schemes, and he's already seen through everything. In Li Mengyao's words, besides explaining, were more bitter and self-mocking, because she was also one of those people she was talking about. She was also a hypocrite and had even schemed against Yi Chun. Of course, in comparison, she was much better off than most people. But she had no choice. In order to live with dignity, there were some things she had to do. Because the real world had become a dog-eat-dog world where the strong were respected. The weak would never have the right to speak. Everything could be taken away at any time, even their lives. Thinking of this, Li Mengyao sighed, and then looked at Hu Xiaoye, who was looking at the city lord's mansion. After a moment of silence, Li Mengyao knelt on the ground and kowtowed 3 times to Hu Xiaoye. Pung, pung, pung. The kowtows were very loud. When Li Mengyao looked up, her forehead was already red and swollen. Hearing the kowtows, Hu Xiaoye came back to her senses and looked at Li Mengyao. In the next second, Hu Xiaoye's face changed. She hurriedly helped Li Mengyao up and then cried out in surprise. Big Sis Yao Yao, what are you doing? Li Mengyao looked at the shocked Hu Xiaoye and smiled bitterly. She then opened her mouth and said, Xiaoye, forgive me for my selfishness. If it weren't for me, perhaps Yi Chun would have let you stay and even brought you to Samsara City. But if Beauty Alliance doesn't have Yi Chun's help, our 10,000 sisters, hearing this, Hu Xiaoye shook her head bitterly. At this moment, tears began to fall from her eyes. After a few seconds, Hu Xiaoye smiled sadly and said, Big Sis Yao Yao, he didn't like me. Big Sis Yao Yao, he never liked me. He was only willing to help Beauty Alliance because we were classmates. I can feel it, but that classmate relationship has come to an end. But Li Mengyao couldn't help but say. But before she could finish, Hu Xiaoye interrupted her. Big Sis Yao Yao, he said that in this world, we can only rely on ourselves. If we want to live well in this world, we can only rely on ourselves. He allowed us to follow him and kill the fleeing shifters. Jean, this is our chance. We should quickly come up with a plan. There are many players in Jua County. As soon as Hu Xiaoya finished speaking, Wang Mingming ran to Hu Xiaoya's side and took her hand. Feeling Wang Mingming's consolation, Hu Xiaoya forced a smile. Then, she let out a long breath and patted Wang Mingming's head. Okay, then let's discuss how we can get the most out of this opportunity. Li Mingyao looked at Hu Xiaoya's sad expression and fell silent for a moment. Then, she nodded heavily and said, "Don't use his name to strengthen Beauty Alliance. He hates that." Hu Xiaoya suddenly remembered something and hurriedly said, "Okay." Li Mingyao paused for a moment, then nodded heavily in response. City Lord's Mansion, Main Hall. As soon as Yichen arrived, Gui Yi, Sun Qing, and Chen Kun stepped forward and bowed. "Greetings, my lord." Yichen nodded with a smile and sat down on the main seat. As soon as Yichen sat down, Sun Qing bowed again and said, my lord, you're planning to implement Xiao Yu's plan. My lord, Feng Xiao just told us about the policy you're going to implement in Yuzhou. I think it's a little inappropriate." Yichen was taken aback when he heard this. Then, he said, "Feel free to speak." Sun Qing smiled and asked, "My lord, have you ever heard of the saying, you should be grateful for the effort you put in, but you should be resentful for the effort you put in?" Yichen's eyes widened when he heard this. Yichen immediately understood what Sun Qing meant. Helping the people was naturally necessary. However, as time passed and the number of times it happened, the people who received help would get used to it and would often take it for granted. Then, they would become dependent and lazy. When that happened, they would not consider what they should do, let alone rely on their own labor to obtain food. They would take it for granted. Even if they settled down and could rely on labor to obtain food, they would not think of working hard. They would only wait for help. If Yichun did not help them, or even gave them too little, they would hold a grudge against him. Of course, there were very few people with such a despicable nature in this era. However, it was undeniable that there were definitely some, just not many. At this thought, Yichen looked at Sun Qing and said, "Wen, issue a notice to all major cities in Yuzhou to use work as a substitute for relief. Instruct the people affected by the disaster to plow the land and repair their houses in exchange for relief food. In addition, send someone to warn all the officials in the cities in Yuzhou not to embezzle a single grain of food from the people. Those who violate this rule will have their entire family executed." Chapter 373. To Yichun, it was absolutely unacceptable for the people to be lazy. This was not the kind of people that Yichun wanted. Providing relief through work was also a preventive measure, so that the people would always have a hard-working and positive attitude, instead of being lazy and reliant on others. When Sun Qing heard Yichun's order, he smiled and bowed. "Yes, my lord." Besides sincerity, his words were also filled with excitement. Just as Gua Yi had said, Yichun was not an autocratic person. Not only was he not autocratic, but he was also good at accepting advice. He had pointed out the possible flaws in Yichun's policy. Not only was Yichun not angry, but he had even formulated a more perfect policy. This was undoubtedly what Sun Qing, who was a king's assistant, wanted to see. If Yichun ignored his suggestions, then no matter how capable he was, he would not be able to do anything. Ding! Sun Qing's loyalty plus 10, advanced to die loyal. Ding! Chun Kun's loyalty plus 10, advanced to die loyal. 2 system notifications rang out. Yichun could not help but raise his eyebrows after hearing them. Not bad, 2 more die loyal subordinates. Thinking of this, Yichun's lips curled up slightly. He looked at Sun Qing and said with a smile, "Go prepare. Once the notice is ready, send people to send it to the major cities in Yuzhou as soon as possible." "Yes, my lord. I will take my leave." When Sun Qing heard this, his expression turned solemn. He bowed and left the hall. Yichun looked at Gua Yi and Chun Kun and said, You guys can rest now. We will set off tomorrow, so I'm afraid you won't have much time to rest." Hearing this, Gua-yi and Chun-kun laughed, then bowed and said, "Yes, my lord." Yi-Chen nodded with a smile. Gua-yi and Chun-kun bowed again and left the hall. At this moment, Yi-Chen suddenly frowned and looked at the world channel. "Yi-Chen, I advise you to mind your own business. Beauty's alliance isn't something you can protect. Don't think you're invincible just because you're ahead in every aspect. The Templar doesn't want to be your enemy, but that doesn't mean we're afraid of you. If you dare help Beauty's alliance, then you'll become the enemy of the 1,000,000 lords of the Templar." Mu Qingfeng, the new alliance master of the Templar, suddenly spoke up on the world channel. His words were filled with arrogance. Of course, there was also a strong threat, because he had the confidence. In his opinion, with 1,000,000 suzerains, even if each suzerain sent out 100 soldiers, they would still have 100 million soldiers. Coupled with his wood spirit orb, he was completely capable of going toe-to-toe with Yi-Chen without falling into a disadvantageous position. Yi-Chen narrowed his eyes when he saw Mu Qingfeng's message on the world channel. "A piece of trash who only wants to absorb a woman's primordial lean to quickly raise his cultivation actually dares to threaten me. He sure has guts. Does he really think that he's invincible just because he has the wood spirit orb and 1,000,000 suzerains?" Yi-Chen smiled coldly when he thought of this. 1,000,000 suzerains might seem like a large number, but to Yi-Chen, they were just a bunch of ants. Yi-Chen had killed more than 1,000,000 players. Even if the 1,000,000 suzerains gathered all their soldiers together, Yi-Chen wouldn't be worried at all. No matter how many soldiers they had, even if there were more than 100 million of them, they were just a bunch of chickens and dogs that couldn't even withstand a single blow. As for the wood spirit orb, that was Yi-Chen's target. Mu Qingfeng wouldn't be able to unleash much of the wood spirit orb's power. Even if he could unleash 2 or even 10 times its current power, Yi-Chen wouldn't be worried at all. It was too easy to kill Mu Qingfeng. He couldn't even dodge the Heaven Quake arrow, let alone the Treasurefall coin, the Fire Spirit orb, or the God Slayer. As long as Mu Qingfeng dared to use the wood spirit orb, Yi-Chen would definitely use the Treasurefall coin to snatch the wood spirit orb. Yi-Chen curled his lips in disdain when he thought of this. At this moment, the world channel, which had been silent for a few seconds because of Mu Qingfeng's words, suddenly began to flood the screen. Holy shit, the St. Hall is so awesome. 1,000,000 suzerains? Damn, how many soldiers do they have? At least over 100 million. It's not just over 100 million. An average village would have at least 200 to 300 soldiers by now. The better ones would have 5 to 1,000 soldiers. Damn, 1,000,000 soldiers from such a village. Damn, so many soldiers. Why, I didn't think that there would finally be someone who could contend with Yi-Chen. Ha ha, Boss Mu Qingfeng, are you still accepting underlings? I'm willing to join the Saint Hall. Kill Yi-Chen. I'll give Boss Mu Qingfeng and the Saint Hall alike. Kill Yi-Chen. Who told him to keep acting cool? Idiot, don't even think about it. Do you know what kind of existence Boss Yi-Chen's soldiers are? Let me tell you, 400,000 Xiantian realm soldiers. Do you know what the Xiantian realm represents? One of them can kill hundreds of Hotian realm soldiers like child's play. Boss Yi-Chen's soldiers are equipped with very high-grade equipment. That Mu Qingfeng soldiers can't even break through his defense. He wants to be Boss Yi-Chen's enemy? He's dreaming. What's the point of wasting time with them? That idiot Mu Qingfeng wants to be Boss Yi-Chen's enemy? He doesn't even ask if our Zhou County's millions of players agree. Right, kill these idiots who dare to be Boss Yi-Chen's enemy. +1, +10086. Motherfuckers, are you serious? Yi-Chen really has 400,000 Xiantian realm soldiers? Holy shit. This doesn't make sense. TCH, real or fake, you'll see soon enough. Idiots from the St. Hall, wash your necks and wait. Motherfuckers, what benefits did Yi-Chen give you to help Yi-Chen like this? You're a bunch of fawning trash. Idiot, you want to follow Yi-Chen? You won't be able to. Also, I can tell you one thing. Boss Yi-Chen is cold and arrogant, but Yi-Chen's heart isn't black. He does things with principles and is very fair. If we follow Boss Yi-Chen, We won't have to worry about our equipment and cultivation techniques being stolen. Moreover, we'll be safe. We won't have to worry about being killed by the shifters. We can even level up and drop equipment. Haha. The World Channel was a buzz. The players of Zhua County quickly joined in, helping Yi Chun to scold those who mocked Yi Chun and those who were gloating over Yi Chen's misfortune. Looking at the World Channel, Yi Chun couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. The players were now divided into two factions. One faction hoped that Yi Chun would be killed, while the other faction spoke up for Yi Chun. Those who hoped that Yi Chun would be killed were naturally despicable. They couldn't bear to see others better than them and stronger than them. As for the players who spoke up for Yi Chun, it was because Yi Chun had given them a chance to follow behind and kill the escaping shifters. Jin. Otherwise, they wouldn't have spoken up for Yi Chun. Simply put, it was because of benefits. Because they could benefit from Yi Chun, they took the initiative to speak up for Yi Chun. Yi Chun understood. Naturally, he wouldn't be moved by this, nor would he change his mind and accept any underlings. In the real world, people's hearts were fickle, especially those who were still alive after the meteor crash. Thinking of this, Yi Chun used his authority as the prefecture overseer. Ding! All players of the sanctuary town in the real world have been added to Yojo's wanted list. All players of the sanctuary town who enter Yojo will be marked with a red name. Chapter 374. As soon as the system notification ended, a sea of players with blood-red names appeared in Zhua County. Their names were bolded and enlarged, making them very eye-catching. This was a privilege that players could exercise after becoming a prefectural governor. They could put any player in the game world on their wanted list. They could also put a player in a city or a territory in the real world on their wanted list. Yi Chun was the governor of Yuzhou. His position was much higher than that of a prefectural governor. Naturally, he could exercise this privilege in the entire Yuzhou. Once a wanted person entered Yuzhou, a blood-red name would appear above their head. It was impossible to hide. The reason Yi Chun did this was simple. Mu Qingfeng knew about the Beauty Alliance so quickly because he had planted spies from the Templar in Zhua Commandery. Otherwise, he wouldn't have known about the Beauty Alliance and threatened Yi Chun on the World Channel so quickly. It was because of the spies' willingness that Yi Chun used his privilege as a prefectural governor to find all of the Templar spies and kill them. Yi Chun didn't want the Templar spies to spy on him and reap the benefits at the same time. On the main street of Zhua Commandery, the players stared with their eyes wide open when they saw red names with the prefix Templar appearing around them or in the distance. F***CK. What's going on? Why are there so many red names suddenly? And they all have the prefix Templar. It must be Boss Yi Chun's doing. That Mu Qingfeng from the Templar threatened Boss Yi Chun. F***CK. I know. These people must be spies from the Templar. Damn it. Those Templar scum actually dared to spy on Boss Yi Chun's territory. Kill them. Yes, kill them. These idiots are too naive. They spy on him and reap benefits from Boss Yi Chun. They're too shameless. Stop wasting time. Go. Kill them. Whoosh. Whoosh. The sound of weapons being unsheathed rang out in waves. The solo players in Zhua County took out their weapons at the same time and slashed at the Templar spies with red names above their heads. These spies of the Templar were all dumbfounded at this moment. Their faces were filled with horror. They had never expected that the game, which had never displayed names before, would suddenly reveal names. Furthermore, it was written in large and bold blood-red font. How the hell was he going to get any more information? How was he going to follow Yi Chun and reap the benefits? Don't do it. This is a bug in the game. Really, it's a bug in the game. I'm not a spy from the Templar. I swear, I'm really not a spy from the Templar. Something is wrong with the game. The spies of the Templar scrambled to explain. This was because they didn't want to be killed. If they were killed, they would lose 10 levels. What was even more terrifying was that after being resurrected, he was still in Zhuojuan City. He couldn't even run away. This way, he would definitely be killed by this group of players who wanted to get on Yi Chun's good side and drop to level 0. If he dropped to level 0 at this time, he would have nothing left. Not to mention killing shifters or golden turbans. Even a random bandit could kill them. This wasn't the most terrifying thing. The most terrifying thing was that this was Yi Chen's territory. If Yi Chen personally took action, they would die in the real world. Moreover, they would die completely. They would say goodbye to the game world and the real world. At this thought, the Templar spies who were begging for mercy and trying their best to explain were all green in the face. However, their begging and explanations were useless. The solo players mercilessly slashed at the Templar spies. For these solo players, it was fortunate that these Templar spies were exposed. Otherwise, they would definitely be implicated. Thinking about Yi Chen's character and way of doing things, this wasn't hard to guess. If they couldn't find them, Yi Chen would definitely chase them out of Zhuojuan City in Yuzhou. Whoever dared to continue following Yi Chen would definitely be killed by Yi Chen. It was precisely because of this that the solo players were so angry and didn't hesitate to attack. Damn it, of all the places to gather information as a spy, they had to gather information about Yi Chen. Wasn't this framing them? Poochie, poochie, poochie. The sound of blades stabbing into flesh instantly rang out in the streets of Zhuojuan City. The Templar spies were instantly killed one by one and then turned into white light to be resurrected. Brothers at the resurrection point, hurry up. Don't let them go offline. Kill those red-named idiots who resurrected. Someone suddenly thought of something and hurriedly shouted in the World Channel. Don't worry. There are Templar spies at the resurrection point. They've already been killed. As soon as they resurrect, they'll definitely be killed immediately. No one can escape. At this moment, the sound of orderly footsteps suddenly rang out in the streets of Zhuojuan City. The Zhuojuan City Guards were led by the City Guards General as they rushed toward the resurrection point. Not long after, the City Guard General of Zhuojuan City Guards led the soldiers to the resurrection point. Looking at the Templar spies who were being killed and resurrected, the City Guards General pulled out the long sword at his waist and then shouted, "The state of Zhuojuan City Guards has been ordered. Lord Prefecture Overseer has given the order. Everyone in the Templar Church is guilty of treason. Kill them. Kill. Kill. Kill." Deafening shouts immediately rang out. The City Guards of Zhuojuan City Guards immediately raised the spears in their hands and charged toward the Templar spies who were being resurrected. Seeing this, the solo players hurriedly made way. The City Guards of Zhuojuan City Guards immediately arrived at the resurrection point and started stabbing without saying anything. Poochie, poochie, poochie. The sound of spears stabbing into bodies rang out one after another. The Templar spies who were being resurrected in the resurrection point died one by one and could no longer be resurrected. This was because they were labeled as criminals by Yi Chen. Once a criminal was killed, they would directly drop to level 0. They could only re-enter the game and choose a new spawn point. It could be said that they had been beaten back to their original state, just like when they first entered the game. This was much worse than the solo players killing them until they were level 0. If they were killed by the solo players until they were level 0, they could still keep their equipment and money. However, if they were killed by the City Guards of Zhuojuan City Guards, they would lose everything. Zhuojuan City, Lord's Manor. Yi Chen retracted his divine sense from the resurrection point, and then curled his lips in disdain. The Templar spies placed in Zhuojuan City, or more accurately, in Yuzhou, there were more than 10,000 of them, which was not a small number. Normal spies would have at most a dozen or 100, but the Templar spies placed more than 10,000 in Yuzhou. It was obvious that Li Chunfeng, the former Templar spies alliance master who was killed by Mu Qingfeng, had long wanted to deal with Yi Chen. The current Templar spies alliance master, Mu Qingfeng, had taken over everything from Li Chunfeng and also wanted to deal with Yi Chen. However, none of them knew that when one's official position reached a certain level, he would have the privilege of being wanted. There was no need for the Templar spies to exist anymore. Thinking of this, Yi Chen smiled coldly and then looked at the attribute panel. Looking at the 240 innate attribute points on the attribute panel, Yi Chen couldn't help but smirk. Then, without hesitation, he added the innate attribute points to his primordial spirit. An indescribably strong aura instantly exploded from Yi Chen's body. That aura was as majestic as a mountain and as vast as the sea. That was the power from the soul, the pressure from the soul. It was high and mighty, looking down on all living things. At that instant, Yi Chen's divine sense immediately covered an area of 330 li. Every blade of grass, every tree, every flower, every leaf, from the smallest ants in the soil to the largest birds circling in the sky, was within the range of Yi Chen's primordial spirit's perception. Even an ant crawling under a small rock at a 330-mile radius was clearly seen by Yi Chen's primordial spirit. Chapter 375. After the time it took to brew a cup of tea, Yi Chen withdrew his spiritual sense and opened his eyes. Not bad, not bad. His divine sense could now cover 330 kilometers. The chances of finding the three immortal island had increased. At this thought, Yi Chen raised his eyebrows. There were countless treasures on the three immortal island. Once they found the three immortal island, Yi Chen and the entire reincarnation city would definitely improve rapidly. Whether it was Yi Chen's women, Yi Chen's subordinates, or Yi Chen's soldiers, they would definitely obtain extraordinary aptitude. In this way, they would not fall too far behind, even if they enter the Eldritch world. Of course, they needed a certain opportunity to find the three immortal island. For Yi Chen, this opportunity was constantly increasing. This was because Yi Chen now had a primordial spirit that had reached 330 points. He was so abnormal that he had no friends. At this thought, Yi Chen could not help but smile. Then, he looked at the lottery option on the attribute panel. This was the reward for completing the task of stopping the three sworn brothers in the peach garden. Yi Chen had been busy for so long that he had not had time to use it. Now that he was free, Yi Chen naturally would not keep it. He wondered what kind of prize would appear this time. At this thought, Yi Chen smiled and clicked on the lottery. Ding! Do you want to start the lottery? Yes. Yi Chen made his choice without hesitation. After Yi Chen made his choice, a large wheel appeared in front of Yi Chen. After seeing the items on the wheel, Yi Chen's eyes widened. Damn it! The number of items on the wheel was the same as the previous time. There were 5 items again, and all of them were extraordinary. Godslayer Fragment X1, Enlightenment Stone X 100,000, Peach of Immortality X10, Bell of Chaos X1, Cauldron of the Universe X1. Yi Chen stared blankly at the 5 items on the roulette wheel, his face filled with disbelief. After a few breaths, Yi Chen exhaled deeply and laughed wildly. Damn it! Damn it! Great fortune! Great fortune again! None of the 5 items were trash. The Godslayer Fragment could increase the Godslayer's completeness and enhance the Godslayer's abilities. Needless to say, this was very important. Ever since he had obtained the fragment of the Godslayer had gained the ability to devour souls. If he obtained another fragment, it would definitely become even stronger. Enlightenment Stone X100000. This was Yi Chen's objective for participating in the Golden Turban Rebellion. As long as he got it, Yi Chen could immediately start refining the Fire Spirit Pearl and achieve a 100% success rate. At that time, Yi Chen would advance to the Fire Spirit body, and his control over fire would definitely reach the acme of perfection, and his power would be extraordinary. Needless to say, this was also very important. Not only could the Peaches of Immortality X10 increase one's strength, but it could also transform one's bone structure into an immortal bone. This was also a good item. The Chaos Bell was a connate cardinal treasure. It could attack and defend. It could seal time and suppress space. It was above one's head. Needless to say, this was very important. The Cosmic Cauldron was a connate cardinal treasure. It could return to its origin and increase the quality of treasures and weapons. It could transform Hodion to connate. He did not expect that he would encounter an explosion of fortune during the lucky draw this time. He was really lucky. Damn it, I wonder which item I will get. It would be best if it was the Chaos Bell. Hee, if I really get the Chaos Bell, Dong Wang Tai would probably cry to death. But damn it, I want the others too. Yi Chen was conflicted as he thought about it and stopped. The spinning speed of the roulette wheel began to slow down, and then it slowed down again. One item after another, the needle kept moving. When the needle of the wheel stopped and pointed at the Chaos Bell X1, Yi Chen's eyes widened. This speed, damn! The Chaos Bell was gone. At that moment, the needle pointed at the Cosmic Cauldron. Yi Chen's mouth twitched when he saw the needle's speed. Damn it, the Cosmic Cauldron was gone too. Just as Yi Chen thought of this, the needle stopped. Just as Yi Chen thought, the needle went past the Cosmic Cauldron and pointed at the Godslayer fragment. That was good too. The Godslayer fragment was also a good item. At that moment, the needle suddenly moved a little. It was very small, but it deviated from its original position. Looking at the needle between Enlightenment Stone X100000 and the Godslayer fragment X1, Yi Chen was stunned. Damn it, could it be again? Just as Yi Chen thought of this, the system notification sounded. Ding! Congratulations to player Yi Chen for obtaining Enlightenment Stone X100000. Yi Chen's eyes widened when he heard the system notification. Damn it! The Enlightenment Stone was not bad either. It was also a good item. The more the better. Just as Yi Chen thought of this, the system notification sounded again. Ding! Congratulations to player Yi Chen for obtaining Godslayer Fragment X1. After hearing the system notification, Yi Chen couldn't help but raise his eyebrows and laugh out loud. Damn it, this felt good. Yi Chen did not expect that not only would he encounter an explosion of good fortune in this lucky draw, but he would also get two of them at once. For Yi Chen, this was simply too good. Just as Yi Chen thought of this, two items appeared in front of him. A small box and a black fragment. At that moment, there was a buzzing sound. The Godslayer appeared on its own and transmitted its desire to Yi Chen. Feeling the God-slaying spear's desire, Yi Chen laughed. Then he picked up the black shard and threw it at the God-slaying spear. There was a flash of black light, and the Godslayer fragment disappeared. Ding! Congratulations to player Yi Chen for recovering Godslayer by 1%. Godslayer, damaged primordial treasure, damaged when Pan-Gu created the heavens. It fell into the mortal world and has been restored by 2%. The Godslayer characteristic was an extremely perverted characteristic. With this, Yi Chen could enter the Eldritch world and stab anyone unlucky. They would either die immediately or have part of their primordial spirit destroyed. This was also the reason why the Godslayer was so powerful. Once the Godslayer recovered to its peak, it could even cripple a sage with one stab. It could even stab him to death. Of course, the probability of this happening was very small. After all, a sage would not do nothing and allow Yi Chen to stab him with the Godslayer. Chapter 376. Not bad, not bad. The crazier the Godslayer, the better. At that thought, Yi Chen summoned the Godslayer back into his body. Looking at the wooden box that was still floating in front of him, Yi Chen reached out and opened it. Clatter! 100,000 Dao comprehension stones fell to the ground. At that moment, the wooden box turned into a ball of light and disappeared. Looking at the Dao comprehension stones that took up more than half of the hall, Yi Chen couldn't help but smile. 100,000 Dao comprehension stones. His luck was not bad this time. With this, he could definitely refine the Fire Spirit Pearl. At that thought, Yi Chen laughed. With a thought, the connate spiritual treasure, Fire Spirit Pearl, appeared beside Yi Chen. Taking a look at the Fire Spirit Pearl, Yi Chen's mouth curled up. He then picked up a Dao comprehension stone and chose to use it. Ding! Congratulations to player Yi Chen for using the Dao Comprehension Stone. Dao Comprehension Mode activated. It will last for 1 minute. Hearing the system's notification, Yi Chen started to refine the Fire Spirit Pearl without hesitation. A mysterious aura instantly appeared between Yi Chen and the Fire Spirit Pearl. Buzz, buzz, buzz! The Fire Spirit Pearl started to vibrate. A fiery red halo spread out from the Fire Spirit Pearl. It was like a ripple, circle after circle, repeating itself. The entire hall was lit up by the fiery red light. Outside the hall of the City Lord Mansion, the maidservants who were waiting for orders all widened their eyes. The aura coming from the hall was too mysterious and mystical. It was like a fairy or a fantasy. It was out of this world. At that moment, 10 Kiliarchs of the Samsara Legion appeared at the entrance of the City Lord Mansion. They stood in 2 rows with their swords out of their sheaths. They were ready. Although they had never seen Yi Chun use the Tao Comprehension Stone and didn't know what the mysterious aura coming from the City Lord Mansion was, it didn't affect their judgment. At that moment, their lord, Yi Chun, was doing something very important. He couldn't be disturbed by anyone. At the same time, the soldiers of the Samsara Legion instantly surrounded the entire City Lord's residence, preventing anyone from approaching or making any noise. In the main hall of the City Lord's mansion, the mysterious aura disappeared in an instant after a minute. Yichen opened his eyes at this moment and sensed the connection between him and the Fire Spirit Pearl. The corner of his mouth instantly curled up. The Tao Comprehension Stone was indeed worthy of being called the Tao Comprehension Stone. When used to refine connate spiritual treasures, it was simply the key to everything. If I were to refine the Fire Spirit Pearl by myself, I would probably need at least 1,000 years or even 10,000 years to fully refine it. This was really extravagant. The Tao Comprehension Stone was used to comprehend the Tao and the laws of heaven and earth. He actually used it to refine the Fire Spirit Pearl. However, it didn't matter. Enlightenment stones weren't difficult to obtain. Continue. Thinking of this, Yi Chun placed his right hand on the small mountain of enlightenment stones and chose to use it without hesitation. Ding! Congratulations to player Yi Chun for using Enlightenment Stone X300. Enlightenment mode activated. Duration: 300 minutes. The moment the system's notification ended, Yi Chun entered the state of refining the Fire Spirit Pearl. The mysterious aura appeared once again. At this time, the fiery red circle of light also continuously expanded as the Fire Spirit Pearl vibrated. The mysterious aura became denser and denser, more and more intense. The 10 Kiliarchs of the Samsara Legion, standing at the entrance of the main hall, didn't have any abnormal reactions at first. They were all very serious and alert. However, as time passed, one by one, they actually entered a state of oblivion. To put it simply, they had an epiphany that could only be discovered but not sought after had appeared on them, just like that. And the reason was that Yi Chun, who was refining the Fire Spirit Pearl, was emitting the aura of the Tao Comprehension Stone. Time passed slowly. When the 10 Kiliarchs woke up from their epiphany, a strong aura instantly appeared on their bodies. The 10 Kiliarchs were all stunned and then overjoyed, because they had advanced from Emperor level to Emperor level. In the next second, the 10 Kiliarchs' faces all changed. It wasn't because of fear or anger, but because they couldn't control their aura in time. In their opinion, their lord, Yi Chun, couldn't be disturbed at all. The 10 Kiliarchs didn't even think and hurriedly retracted their aura. They looked at each other and then revealed a face full of regret and self-blame. If Yi Chun was disturbed because of their actions, they would die 100 times to atone for their sins. This was what they felt in their hearts at this moment. It was unanimous and without any falsehood. At this time, the 10 Kiliarchs looked at Yi Chun in the main hall at the same time. In the next second, the 10 Kiliarchs heaved a sigh of relief. This was because Yi Chun, who was refining the Fire Spirit Pearl, wasn't affected by them at all. He was still refining the Fire Spirit Pearl in the Tao Comprehension mode. In fact, this was also because the 10 Kiliarchs didn't understand the Tao Comprehension mode. Otherwise, they wouldn't have blamed themselves so much. In the Tao Comprehension mode, Yi Chun wouldn't be disturbed in any way as long as he didn't encounter any danger or release any hostility or killing intent. This was different from the 10 Kiliarchs of the Samsara Legion, who were affected by Yi Chun and then entered a state of enlightenment. If they were disturbed, they would definitely be interrupted in their enlightenment. Time passed little by little. The mysterious aura in the main hall became stronger and stronger and then spread outside the City Lord Mansion. The soldiers of the Samsara Legion, who were on full alert, were all taken aback. The mysterious and mysterious aura enveloped them. They felt comfortable, unprecedentedly comfortable. This comfortable feeling didn't just come from their bodies, but also from their souls. They had a feeling that they seemed to have become smarter. Many things that they didn't understand in the past suddenly became clear. It was like an illusion, but it really happened to them. Time passed little by little. The eyes of the Samsara Legion soldiers lit up one by one, and then they revealed ecstatic expressions. This was because the difficult problems that had plagued them with saint-level cultivation techniques were solved one by one, and then they became unobstructed. This way, when they cultivated again, it would definitely be twice the result with half the effort, and their strength would increase even faster. This was already enough to surprise them, but what they didn't expect was that their killing techniques would be even more effective. The killing skills they had mastered were also strengthened at this time. Not only did they become more proficient in them, but their power had also increased. Of course, this was what they felt, but this feeling was very real, and there wasn't the slightest bit of falsehood. However, this wasn't the end. Many of the Samsara Legion soldiers even comprehended new attack techniques. The Samsara Legion soldiers all looked at the City Lord's residence at the same time as they sensed the changes and improvements in their bodies. They weren't stupid and naturally knew how all these changes came about. Bang! The Samsara Legion soldiers all knelt on one knee in unison and bowed in the direction of the City Lord Mansion's main hall. City Lord Mansion, main hall. Yi-Chun woke up from the 5-hour Tao comprehension mode and felt the connection with the Fire Spirit Pearl. His eyes suddenly lit up. Damn, the Tao comprehension stone was indeed the Tao comprehension stone. He had refined 1% of it. Chapter 377. Under normal circumstances, Yi-Chun wouldn't be able to refine a connate spirit treasure in a mortal evolution state, even if he had 100,000 years. It was impossible even if he could refine 1/10,000th of it. He wouldn't be able to refine it even if he worked himself to death because his cultivation level was too weak. Moreover, a mortal evolution state couldn't live for that long. At most, he would have a lifespan of 300 years. Even a golden immortal would have to spend hundreds of years to refine a connate spirit treasure to 1% of its original power. Now, Yi-Chun used the Enlightenment Stone to refine 1/100th of the Fire Spirit Pearl in just 5 hours while he was still in a mortal evolution state. One could only imagine how abnormal this speed was. He still had to farm demons and golden scarves. Otherwise, he would be able to refine the entire Fire Spirit Pearl in 20 days. There was no hurry. He was still in the newbie area of the Three Kingdoms and hadn't ascended to the primordial world. Farming demons and golden scars were more important. The more he farmed, the more battle merits and merits he would get. This way, he could exchange for more enlightenment stones. Thinking of this, Yi-Chun could not help but raise his eyebrows. At this moment, the sound of 10 people kneeling on the ground could be heard. The 10 Kiliarchs of the Samsara Legion knelt on the ground at the same time. Yi-Chun was stunned at the sudden kneeling of the 10 Kiliarchs. What was going on? Just as Yi-Chun thought of this, the 10 Kiliarchs of the Samsara Legion said in unison with regret, "We couldn't control our aura in time because of our advancement and almost disturbed the Lord. We deserve to die. Please punish us, Lord." Yi-Chun was stunned again when he heard this. He then looked at the attributes of the 10 Kiliarchs. Emperor-level general, a new attack skill. This was an epiphany. How could all 10 of them have an epiphany? At this moment, Yi-Chun thought of something, and his eyes widened. The mysterious aura from refining the Fire Spirit Pearl must have affected them. That was why they were able to enter an epiphany. Damn, the Enlightenment Stone had such a use. Thinking of this, Yi-Chun's eyes lit up. The state of epiphany was extremely rare. Once one was in the state of epiphany, one's cultivation path would become smoother. Not only would one be able to comprehend their own skills, they would also be able to comprehend new skills. It could even greatly increase one's cultivation realm. The 10 commanders of the Samsara Legion had obviously entered a state of epiphany. Although they didn't enter a deep level of enlightenment, they still advanced by a small realm, advancing from emperor level to emperor level. All of this was because Yi Chun used the Tao Comprehension Stone to refine the Fire Spirit Pearl. To put it simply, for others, sudden enlightenment was something that could only be encountered by chance and not sought. However, for Yi Chun, it could be completely controlled by someone. As long as Yi Chun refined the Fire Spirit Pearl and brought his subordinates along, they would definitely be able to enter a state of enlightenment. Once Yi Chun's subordinates entered a state of epiphany, their strength would increase by 100%. If he were to refine the Fire Spirit Pearl in the future, he would definitely not waste it like this. Thinking of this, Yi Chun laughed and then looked at the 10 commanders of the Samsara Legion. It's okay. You can't affect me. The truth was that the Samsara Legion was 100% loyal to Yi Chun. It was impossible for them to have any enmity towards Yi Chun, much less have any killing intent towards Yi Chun, let alone directly attack Yi Chun. Thus, after Yi Chun entered a state of enlightenment, he wouldn't be disturbed by the aura released by their advancement. Thank you, my lord. When the 10 commanders of the Samsara Legion heard this, they heaved a sigh of relief and then bowed solemnly. They weren't afraid of being punished by Yi Chun or beheaded by Yi Chun. What they were afraid of was that their lord, Yi Chun, would be angry or chase them away. To them, this was the last thing they wanted to see. They would rather be punished, even if they were beheaded. They just didn't want Yi Chun to be angry or even chase them away. However, it was clear that Yi Chun did not take this to heart at all, nor did he take it seriously. Yi Chun smiled and nodded. Then, his expression turned serious as he shouted, "Pass on my orders. The Samsara Legion is to enter the City Lord Mansion." When the 10 commanders of the Samsara Legion heard this, they were all stunned. They didn't expect Yi Chun to suddenly give such an order. When they came back to their senses, the 10 commanders hurriedly bowed and responded, "Yes, my lord." Although they didn't understand, they would definitely obey Yi Chun's orders and complete them unswervingly. After the 10 commanders of the Samsara Legion finished speaking, they got up and left the City Lord Mansion. Not long after, they led the Samsara Legion soldiers to the front yard of the City Lord Mansion. Yi Chun glanced at the Samsara Legion that had already arrived at the front yard and smiled. With a wave of his right hand, all the enlightenment stones in the hall were collected by Yi Chun. Looking at the empty hall, Yi Chun couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. Then, he went out and came to the front yard. Swoosh! The Samsara Legion knelt on one knee in unison and bowed loudly. "Greetings, my lord." Their voices were loud and clear. Yi Chun nodded and then shouted, "Form a circle with a 3-meter radius in the middle." When the Samsara Legion soldiers heard this, they were all stunned. Then they bowed and said, "Yes, my lord." In the next second, the Samsara Legion soldiers hurriedly moved and quickly formed a circle with a 3-meter radius in the middle. Yi Chun glanced at him and smiled faintly. Then he leaped up. Bang! There was a loud sound. Yi Chun landed accurately in the middle of the Samsara Legion. Meditate and comprehend. Don't be disturbed by the outside world. Don't worry about affecting me. Yi Chun looked at the confused Samsara Legion soldiers and shouted, "Yes, my lord." The Samsara Legion soldiers bowed in unison. They were still at a loss and didn't know what Yi Chun was going to do. Yi Chun waved his right hand, and 300 enlightenment stones instantly appeared on the ground. After taking a look at the enlightenment stones on the ground, Yi Chun sat cross-legged. With a thought, the connate spiritual treasure Fire Spirit Pearl instantly appeared. Looking at the Fire Spirit Pearl that was more agile than before, Yi Chun slapped the 300 enlightenment stones with his right hand and chose to use them. Ding! Congratulations to player Yi Chun for using enlightenment stones x 300. Enlightenment mode activated. Duration: 300 minutes. The moment the system's notification ended, Yi Chun entered the state of refining the Fire Spirit Pearl. The mysterious aura once again appeared between Yi Chun and the Fire Spirit Pearl and spread outwards. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The fire spirit pearl began to tremble. The fiery red light circle appeared again and spread outwards from the fire spirit pearl. It was like a ripple, circle after circle, repeating itself and reflecting everyone's faces. The mysterious aura also became thicker and more intense at this moment. When the Samsara Legion soldiers saw this, their eyes widened. Then, they revealed excited and grateful expressions. At this moment, how could they not understand what their lord, Yi Chun, was going to do? He was going to give them a chance and let them have a brighter and more promising future. In the next second, the soldiers of the Samsara Legion silently and deeply bowed to Yi Chun. Then, their expressions were solemn and their eyes were resolute as they stood up straight, quietly waiting for their epiphany to arrive. Chapter 378. Buzz. Buzz. The fire spirit pearl floating in front of Yi Chun was still vibrating. The fiery red halo appeared again and then spread out, illuminating the faces of the soldiers, the sky, and the earth. On the streets of Zhua County, the board players noticed the abnormality in the sky above the City Lord Mansion. Then their eyes widened. Damn, what's that? Why is the sky red? Is the City Lord Mansion on fire? Of course not. There are already soldiers running there. Boss Yi Chun is staying there temporarily. What's the situation at the City Lord Mansion? Why are there waves of red light? Who knows? Anyway, it's not a fire. I think Boss Yi Chun got some treasure again. Otherwise, it wouldn't be like this. I think so too. Unfortunately, I don't have Boss Yi Chun's ability. Otherwise, I could get a treasure too, in your dreams. Do you think anyone can copy Boss Yi Chun? Damn, I'm just saying. I'm just imagining things. Speaking of which, what's going on in this game world? Why are there immortal artifacts and divine artifacts? Are there really immortals? I don't know if there are immortals, but I know that this world is not simple. Think about those demons. Damn it, I don't even know how they came out. They're so strong. I think there should be immortals. It's just that they haven't appeared yet. Damn, if there really are immortals, doesn't that mean we have a chance to become immortals in the future? Of course. Just think about Boss Yi Chun's bow. It can attack automatically, track automatically, and retrieve automatically. Damn, this isn't something that should exist in the mortal world. That's great. When I become an immortal, I won't have to worry about dying. Stop dreaming. If you become an immortal, those demons will definitely become immortal demons or something. When that happens, we won't be able to escape danger. The players on the streets of Zhua County were discussing the changes in the City Lord Mansion. Then the topic shifted to the game world. The players were still very confused. They didn't know how the game world would develop in the future. They made one guess after another, saying all sorts of things. However, in the end, they managed to guess most of the game world. Their guess was right. This world was not as simple as it was now. They could reach a higher level. It was not impossible for them to become gods or immortals. They also guessed that the demon clan would also become stronger. These were all correct, but what they did not know was that the dangers they would face in the future were not as simple as they imagined. In the great desolate world, both human and shifter players could ascend once they reached a certain level. However, the level of danger there far exceeded their expectations. In that place, there were no immortals. If one wanted to become an immortal, one had to cultivate hard to do so, because there were no humans there yet. Once the players ascended to the primordial world, they would not only face the demon race in the real world, but also the demon race in the primordial world. To the real demon race, the demon race in the real world was just a bunch of small fries. Any one of them could destroy all living things in the real world. Even Yi Chun was no exception. One could imagine how terrifying the great desolate world was. Of course, the players at this moment did not know this. They were all still looking forward to the future. This was also because they could follow behind Yi Chun without the pressure of dying at any time. Otherwise, they would not be able to have a good night's sleep, let alone chat or think about the future. Zhua County, City Lord's Mansion. Wave after wave of mysterious aura swept across the bodies of the Samsara soldiers. Time slowly passed. The Samsara core, from the inside to the outside, entered a state of enlightenment where they forgot about everything around them. An hour later, a tyrannical aura suddenly erupted from the Samsara Legion. This was a phenomenon brought about by an advancement. Someone had begun to advance. Not long after, the tyrannical aura that was automatically released due to the advancement appeared in waves. 2 hours later, the soldiers of the Samsara Legion, without exception, had all advanced to Emperor-level generals. However, no one spoke. They all stood there quietly, continuously receiving the baptism of the mysterious aura. This was because they could also obtain benefits. They could increase their understanding, proficiency, and power of their techniques and skills. Of course, more importantly, they could also comprehend even more powerful offensive skills. Time slowly passed. When the sun set in the west and the afterglow of the setting sun shone on the Samsara Legion, Yichen opened his eyes. The extremely mysterious aura instantly dissipated into nothingness. Bang! At this moment, the soldiers of the Samsara Legion uniformly knelt on one knee and bowed loudly. "Thank you, Lord, for your grace." Their voices were loud and clear, their spirits soaring to the skies. When Yichen heard this, his divine sense moved and covered the Samsara Legion. After checking the status of the soldiers, Yichen could not help but raise his eyebrows. They had all advanced to Emperor-level generals. Even if he did not use the White Tiger battle formation or the Vermilion Bird battle formation, no one in the Samsara Legion would be able to stop him. Not bad thinking of this. Yichen chuckled and nodded. Then, he stood up and said, "Go and eat. Go have your meal and rest early. We'll set off tomorrow." "Yes, Lord." The soldiers of the Samsara Legion shouted in unison. Then, they stood up and left the city lord residence. It was impossible for the state of Epiphany to appear continuously. Even if Yichen could control it, it would not work. This was because the prerequisite for the state of Epiphany was that there were flaws and difficulties in cultivation. This required a period of accumulation. At this moment, the soldiers of the Samsara Legion had already reached the most perfect state. Even if Yichen continued to let them undergo the baptism of the mysterious aura, they would not be able to enter the state of Epiphany. Otherwise, Yichen would definitely let the Samsara Legion continue to undergo the baptism of the mysterious aura and continue to enter the state of Epiphany. After the soldiers of the Samsara Legion left, Yichen looked directly at the fire spirit pearl floating in front of him. He had refined 2% of it. Not bad. This speed was simply abnormal. At this thought, the corners of Yichen's mouth curled up. With a thought, the fire spirit pearl instantly returned to his mind. At this moment, Zhao Yun, Dian Xiong, Gao Shun, Zhao Meng, Guan Er, Zhang San, and Zhang He entered happily. Then, they looked at Yichen and bowed in unison. "Congratulations, Lord! Congratulations, Lord! The Samsara Legion has all advanced to Emperor-class generals." Yichen heard this and nodded with a smile. He then looked at Zhao Meng and asked, "How many sets of equipment have been delivered?" Hearing Yichen's question, Zhao Meng hurriedly bowed and said, "My lord, 1,000,000 sets of equipment have been delivered. They have been distributed." Yichen heard this and could not help but be stunned. Then he asked, "Has Samsara City added more blacksmiths?" "My lord, Samsara City did not add more blacksmiths. Yesterday, Zhou Tsang killed a mutant and obtained a treasure that could duplicate equipment. That was how we were able to gather 1,000,000 sets of equipment." Zhao Meng hurriedly bowed and explained. Chapter 379. Hearing this, Yichen's eyes widened, and a name appeared in Yichen's mind. Lord Grimm, a famous equipment wholesaler in his previous life. It must be him. Who would have thought that this bastard would actually have his eyes on me? Thinking of this, Yichen's eyes narrowed, and a cold light flashed in them. In his previous life, Lord Grimm was an extremely famous equipment wholesaler. It was not until a long time later that his secret was exposed. It was only after his secret was exposed that people knew one thing. Lord Grimm was able to resell countless pieces of high-level equipment, not because he had a territory, but because he had a treasure that could duplicate equipment. Of course, duplicating was one thing, but there were many restrictions. It had to be ordinary equipment, and its level could not exceed the black level. That said, even with such a restriction, that treasure had still earned him an enormous amount of wealth. It was also for this reason that after the secret of the treasure was exposed, countless people wanted to snatch the treasure that could replicate the equipment. However, no one was able to do it. This was because Lord Grimm not only had the treasure that could duplicate equipment, but he also had an even more powerful treasure, the innate spiritual treasure, golden spiritual pearl. The owner of the innate spiritual treasure was not someone that could be killed by just anyone. Those players that went to cause trouble for Lord Grimm all failed without exception. If they weren't killed, then they had to escape with heavy losses. At first glance, Lord Grimm was an opportunistic and lucky businessman. At most, he might be very powerful in the future. To Yi Chun, he was not much of a threat. Yi Chun should not reveal his killing intent. However, the truth was that he was not only a businessman, but also a businessman who specialized in helping the weak. To put it simply, he would sell equipment to the weaker party, and then try his best to bring the two parties to the same level. This way, when the two parties fought, there would be a situation of equal strength. When the time came, the outcome of the battle would be uncertain. Of course, Lord Grimm did not care who won or lost. He only cared about the casualties. The more casualties, the happier he would be, because this way, he could continue to sell more equipment. To Yi Chun, Lord Grimm's actions were undoubtedly a ploy against Yi Chun and would cause trouble for Samsara City. This time, Lord Grimm had gone to Samsara City with the sole purpose of killing the soldiers of Samsara City and stealing their equipment. Once Yi Chun obtained the diamond-grade equipment set from the Samsara City soldiers, he could use the treasure to duplicate diamond-grade equipment and sell it to the forces that wanted to target Yi Chun. Once the forces that had designs on Yi Chun obtained diamond-level equipment, they would definitely be emboldened and would definitely attack Yi Chun. After all, Yi Chun's existence had severely affected the development of those ambitious players. After all, Yi Chun was the #1 player in the human race. He was extremely powerful. Not only was he the first Saint-level general, but he had also reached the maximum level of 100. Yi Chun's forces were also the strongest among the human players. Not only did he have millions of soldiers, but his equipment was also insanely good. He also had many first-rate historical generals and historical officials. This resulted in a result. For a period of time, no one could compete with Yi Chun, and no one dared to compete with Yi Chun. However, once the players who had designs on Yi Chun obtained diamond-grade equipment from Lord Grimm, their worries would be greatly reduced. Then, they would attack Yi Chun together. As long as they killed Yi Chun, they would have the opportunity to obtain all sorts of good items. They could also subdue historical generals, historical officials, historical beauties, and even take away everything that belonged to Yi Chun. This was what these people had always wanted to do. However, they had been suppressed by Yi Chun and did not have the opportunity to do so. Now that they had the opportunity, how could they not move forward? Of course, Yi Chun was not afraid that the enemy also had a full set of diamond-grade equipment. This was because the soldiers of Samsara City were 100% elite soldiers. Even if they had the same equipment, the soldiers of Samsara City could easily destroy the enemy. Not to mention, there were many first-rate and super first-rate historical generals. After all, this was the Three Kingdoms. It was easy to obtain 1,000 soldiers, but difficult to find a general. However, even though he was not afraid, Yi Chun did not want to see such a thing happen. Fortunately, Zhozong had directly killed Lord Grimm, who had designs on Samsara City. He had even dropped the treasure that could duplicate equipment. Otherwise, the other forces would definitely buy diamond-grade equipment from Lord Grimm and in large quantities. This was not a good thing for Yi Chun and Samsara City. You have the golden soul pearl, but you are not strong enough. How dare you come to Samsara City and cause trouble? You must have eaten the heart of a bear or the heart of a leopard. Without that treasure, I like to see how you can make money by spiritual herbs and improve your strength quickly. For Yi Chun, Lord Grimm had always been one of his targets because the Jinling Pearl was with him. However, Yi Chun did not expect that before Yi Chun went to look for Lord Grimm, he would come directly to Yi Chun to make trouble for him. To be precise, he had come to scheme against Yi Chun and Samsara City. However, he had gone for wool and come home shorn. He had dropped the treasure that could duplicate equipment. Thinking of this, Yi Chun smiled coldly. Then he looked at Zhao Yun, Dian Xiong, Gao Shun, Zhang He, Guan Er, and Zhang San and asked, "How's the training of the recruits going?" Hearing Yi Chun's question, Zhao Yun, Dian Xiong, Gao Shun, Zhang He, Guan Er, and Zhang San hurriedly bowed and said, "My lord, the recruits have mastered the basic skills to kill enemies on the battlefield." Hearing this, Yi Chun nodded with satisfaction and then said, "Go back and rest early. Tomorrow morning, we will go to Jizhou." "Yes, my lord." Zhao Yun, Dian Xiong, Gao Shun, Zhang He, Guan Er, Zhang San, and Zhao Meng bowed and saluted loudly. Yi Chun nodded and then went straight to the backyard of the Castellan's mansion. After dinner, he directly sat down and began to practice the 9 revolutions mysterious skill. At this moment, Yi Chun was completely capable of replacing sleep with cultivation. Although Yi Chun's strength had been sealed because he had not ascended, it was not impossible for him to improve. What was reflected was the strength and defense of Yi Chun's body. If it were other cultivation methods, it would not be possible. However, Yi Chun's cultivation method was at the chaos level, the 9 revolutions mysterious skill. There was no doubt that it could do this. Of course, one night would not be able to improve much, but it would accumulate. How could Yi Chun waste it? After all, the Eldritch world was too dangerous. If he could become a little stronger, even if it was only a little, it could play a role in turning the situation around. As for refining the Fire Spirit Pearl, Yi Chun still had more than 99,000 enlightenment stones. Naturally, he could continue to refine it. However, it would be too wasteful to refine it directly. Yi Chun still wanted to let his subordinates bask in the glory and undergo the baptism of the mysterious aura. Then, they would enter a state of enlightenment and improve their strength. Moreover, this was the 3 Kingdoms newcomers area. Yi Chun was already at the peak of his strength. There was no need to rush to refine the Fire Spirit Pearl. The next day, at dawn, Yi Chun was served by the maidservants. He got dressed, had breakfast, and went straight to the living room. As soon as Yi Chun arrived, he saw Zhao Yun, Gui Yi, Dian Xiong, Zhao Meng, Gao Shun, Zhang He, Guan Er, Zhang San, Sun Qing, and Chun Kun. Seeing Yi Chun arrive, everyone hurriedly got up and bowed loudly. "Greetings, my lord. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.